5:45 a.m. local time. June 7th, 2026. Private Terminal 3 at Santa Barbara International Airport. While the rest of Montecito is still asleep, a lone black SUV pulls onto the tarmac. There is no security detail of 10 men, there is no fleet of assistants, and most importantly, there is no Meghan Markle. Prince Harry emerges from the vehicle alone, carrying a single piece of carry-on luggage, and boards a private jet bound for London. This is not just another flight. This is the moment the world has been waiting for. This is the official activation of the Break Glass Protocol. You are watching a live update from the Royal Insider Network, and the news we have received in the last 12 hours suggests the Sussex brand has just hit a point of no return. For years, we were told they were a unit, a salt and pepper duo that always moved together. But as of this morning, that narrative has been incinerated. This solo flight to London is a visual declaration of independence. According to top-tier PR strategists in Los Angeles, Harry is no longer just visiting family. He is actively scrubbing his personal brand. He is attempting to wash away the American noise that has defined his life for the last 6 years. But the evidence goes deeper than just a single airport appearance. If you look at the digital trail, the signs were there 48 hours ago. On June 5th, at precisely 3 p.m. Pacific Time, the official Archwell website underwent a silent but violent purge. The iconic photograph from 2020, showing the couple standing united in the garden of their former home, was deleted. It has been replaced by a solo shot of Harry at the Invictus Games. This digital erasure is the smoking gun. It mirrors the documents recently uncovered from the United Kingdom Intellectual Property Office. In April 2026, legal filings revealed that the trademark applications for Prince Harry were filed separately from those of Meghan Markle. They are no longer a joint entity in the eyes of the law. They are two separate businesses with two very different destinies. Think about what this means for a moment. If you are finding this breakdown as shocking as we are, hit that like button right now and subscribe. It helps us keep the lights on as we track these movements in real time. Do you think Harry is better off returning to London alone? Type Team Harry or Team Sussex in the comments below. We read every single one. Now, let's look at the authority staircase behind this move. This isn't just tabloid gossip. This is about the mechanics of power. The United Kingdom Home Office has received a formal notification regarding Harry's stay. But here is the twist. There was no request for family protection. The documents filed under the RAVEX security protocol only list one name, one individual, one prince. Behind the scenes, the tension has reached a boiling point. An insider close to the Montecito household described a massive fallout that occurred just 3 days ago. According to this source, the conversation went like this. Meghan reportedly looked at Harry and said, "I am not going back to that country to be booed. If you want to play the hero at Birmingham, you go without me. I am not putting myself or the children through that drama again." Harry's response was short and uncharacteristically cold. He reportedly replied, "I have to go. There is nothing left for me here if the money runs out." This leads us to the terrifying reality of the $10 million gap. Public sources and financial analysts suggest that the Sussexes are facing a massive cash flow crisis as they head into the second half of 2026. Their lifestyle costs nearly $5 million a year just to maintain. With the Netflix residuals drying up and no new major contracts on the horizon, the bank accounts are screaming. The how it works mechanism is simple but brutal. First, the high-cost lifestyle triggers a massive monthly burn rate. Second, the lack of joint content leads to a drop in market value. Third, the only way to generate a quick cash injection is to return to the only source of real power, the British monarchy. Harry is landing in London in a few hours. He is returning to a father who once pleaded with him, "Don't make my final years a misery, boy." But he is also returning to a brother who has reportedly barred the door to Kensington Palace. Harry is standing at a crossroads. And the path back to California is looking increasingly narrow. This is breaking news. The timeline is moving fast. The legal filings are clear. The jet is in the air. Prince Harry is alone, and the $10 million countdown has officially begun. Stay tuned as we dive into the financial disaster lurking behind the palace gates in our next update. This is the Royal Insider Network, your eyes on the crown. While Prince Harry's jet crosses the Atlantic, the ground beneath their Montecito estate is beginning to shift in a way that no amount of PR can hide. To understand why Harry is flying alone today, we have to look past the palace gates and into the cold, hard data found in the public records of Santa Barbara County. The reality is staggering. The mortgage on their sprawling California mansion has recently hit a new interest rate threshold of 7.2%. For a property of that magnitude, we are talking about a monthly interest commitment that would bankrupt most successful professionals. The house is no longer a sanctuary. It has become a high-interest liability. But the true authority staircase of this crisis is found in the official tax filings. According to the latest Form 990 reports from the Archwell Foundation, the couple's primary charitable vehicle has suffered a catastrophic 85% drop in donations from major contributors. This isn't just a dip in popularity. It is a full-scale abandonment by the ultra-wealthy elite who once championed their cause. The situation has escalated further with a new signal from the Internal Revenue Service. Sources close to the Treasury Department suggest that federal auditors have begun a preliminary review of how the couple's massive security costs are being categorized. For years, these multi-million-dollar protection details have been claimed as business expenses under the Archwell umbrella. If the IRS determines these were personal costs, the resulting tax bill and penalties could be the final blow to their American dream. By the end of the 2026 fiscal year, financial analysts project a staggering $10 million cash shortfall for the Sussexes. This brings us to the how it works mechanism, the reputation debt spiral. It is a three-step cycle of decline that is now in full effect. First, there is the fixed burn rate. To maintain a global A-list lifestyle, including elite security, international legal battles, and a top-tier PR machine, requires a minimum of $5 million every single year. This is the cost of simply existing in their current world. Second, the trigger event. In 2025, the massive content contracts with major streaming platforms reached their expiration dates without renewal. The easy money that fueled their initial independence has vanished, leaving the machine running with no fuel in the tank. Third, the consequence. When the bank account dips, the only remaining currency is revelation. To get a quick cash injection, they are forced to sell increasingly private details of royal life, but each time they do, their credibility drops. This loss of prestige means the next contract they sign will be worth significantly less than the one before. It is a race to the bottom. Behind the scenes, the tension over these numbers has reportedly turned toxic. Picture the scene in the Montecito study just weeks ago. A financial advisor lays out the spreadsheet. Harry sees the red ink. Meghan sees the social calendar. The advisor reportedly told them, "You cannot sustain the security detail and the private aviation on a zero-revenue model. Something has to give." Harry's solo flight today suggests that something has finally given way. He is heading back to a country where his security was once a birthright, leaving behind a lifestyle that has become a financial prison. As the sun sets over the London skyline, the question isn't just about whether Harry will see the king, it's about whether he can afford the ticket back to the life he chose. The H. Sussex 2026 file at the Home Office is waiting, and the numbers inside are far more dangerous than any headline. To understand why the tarmac at Santa Barbara was so silent this morning, we have to look at the strategic dominoes that have been falling for the last 24 months. This isn't a sudden decision. It is the inevitable conclusion of a timeline that began with a windfall and ended in a total collapse of shared purpose. The first domino fell in September 2024. In London, a long-standing trust established by the Queen Mother reached its maturity date. Prince Harry received an inheritance estimated at £8 million. At the time, this was hailed as a financial rescue package. It was a buffer that allowed the Sussexes to settle their mounting legal bills in the British courts and maintain their high-security perimeter in California. But as any wealth manager will tell you, £8 million vanishes quickly when you are fighting 3 global media conglomerates at once. It was a temporary bandage on a hemorrhage. By May 2025, the financial reality in California turned cold. The multi-year production deal with Netflix, once thought to be their permanent golden ticket, officially expired. The streaming giant quietly signaled that they would not be renewing the contract for original content. Archewell lost its primary source of recurring annual revenue. The service's universal model was officially without a benefactor. Desperation leads to diversification, and in January 2026, Meghan Markle launched her long-awaited lifestyle brand from their Montecito home. The PR machine was set to maximum, but the market spoke back with brutal honesty. Internal data leaked from the launch week revealed a conversion rate of just 1.2%. For every 1,000 visitors to the site, barely 12 people were actually clicking buy. The brand that was supposed to rival the world's top luxury influencers was, in the words of one industry analyst, dead on arrival. This failure set the stage for the most significant move from the palace in years. In March 2026, a back-channel communication was reportedly sent from Buckingham Palace to Harry. It wasn't a formal invitation, it was what insiders call a hidden offer from King Charles. The narrative of that message was simple and devastating. The king reportedly told his son, "The door to your home is open, and the state will provide the protection you require, but that protection extends only to you. We cannot shield those who refuse to work within the institution." The conflict reached a breaking point last month in Birmingham. As preparations for the 2027 Invictus Games accelerated, a major security standoff occurred. The Metropolitan Police and the Home Office presented a shared security protocol for the event. Meghan reportedly refused to sign the document. Sources describe a heated exchange where she told Harry, "I will not be treated like a secondary guest in your country. If I am not guaranteed full diplomatic immunity and state protection, I will not set foot on that soil." Harry's response was the first sign of the Great Divide. He reportedly argued that the Invictus Games were his legacy and that his commitment to the veterans came before any PR dispute. This brings us to yesterday, June 6, 2026. Harry's plane touched down at a private airfield near London. He was met by a single police escort and taken to an undisclosed location. Meghan remains at the Montecito estate, thousands of miles away, surrounded by the silence of a failed business venture and a mortgage that continues to climb. The breakpoint has been triggered. The timeline shows a couple who once moved in lockstep now operating on completely different maps. While Harry prepares for a summer of royal reconciliation and veteran advocacy, the shadows in California are growing longer. The question now shifting across the halls of Westminster is no longer if they are separated, but what the legal price of that separation will be. As Harry settles into his first night on British soil in months, the true nature of his security agreement is about to be tested. While the public focuses on the drama of the solo flight, the real battle is being fought behind reinforced doors in London. Specifically, inside room 402 of the Ravec building, the headquarters for the Executive Committee for the Protection of Royalty and Public Figures. On the mahogany table sits a thick, red-tab dossier bearing the high-security classification, Hotel, Sussex, 2026. This is the legal battlefield where Prince Harry's future is being dissected by civil servants and security experts. At the heart of this dossier is a demand that has sent shockwaves through the Home Office. Harry is not just asking for a few bodyguards, he is demanding Level 1 status, officially known as Internationally Protected Person, or IPP status. In the world of global security, IPP status is the ultimate golden ticket. It mandates that the host government provides absolute, state-funded protection 24 hours a day, regardless of the individual's current employment. But the Home Office has built a legal fortress against this request. Their stance is a cold, bureaucratic reality. Protection is a consequence of service. Because Harry is no longer a working royal, he has fallen into a grey zone. The Ravec Committee has issued a binding constraint. If Harry wants the elite Metropolitan Police protection detail while on British soil, he must pay an estimated £500,000 per year out of his own pocket. This is not a suggestion, it is a non-negotiable invoice for his presence. This £500,000 bill is a massive financial trigger point. When you combine this with the $10 million shortfall facing the Sussexes in California, the math simply stops working. And this brings us to the most calculated twist in the entire Sussex saga. For months, the narrative has been that Meghan Markle refuses to return to the United Kingdom because of personal grievances or a lack of popularity. But the Hotel Sussex dossier suggests a far more pragmatic and ruthless motive. Financial risk optimization. Meghan understands a reality that many observers miss. If she sets foot in London without state-funded IPP protection, she becomes an uninsured liability. Without government-level security, every public appearance requires a private security team that costs tens of thousands of dollars per day. Furthermore, without the legal umbrella of the state, she is vulnerable to a media frenzy that carries massive legal and PR mitigation costs. In a reported strategy meeting with her legal team in California, the logic was laid bare. An advisor reportedly stated, "Returning to the United Kingdom without state protection is a negative revenue event. The cost of ensuring your safety and managing the fallout far outweighs any branding benefit of being seen in London." By staying in Montecito, Meghan is not just avoiding a difficult environment, she is protecting the remaining family capital. She is letting Harry take the financial and security risks alone. This is the separation of risk strategy. If Harry can successfully navigate Ravec and the Home Office to win back taxpayer-funded protection, the path is cleared for her return. If he fails, she remains safe in the California fortress, unburdened by the £500,000 police invoice. As Harry sits in his temporary residence tonight, he knows that every hour he spends on British soil is an hour that is being billed. The H. Sussex 2026 file remains open, and the committee is watching his every move. They are waiting to see if the prince will pay the price of his independence, or if the mounting costs will finally force a surrender to the institution he tried to leave behind. The next move doesn't belong to a PR agent. It belongs to the accountants at the Home Office. The shadow of the $10 million deficit now looms so large that the Sussexes have reached a definitive scenario tree. Every decision made in the next 90 days will lead down one of three specific paths. According to high-level strategic advisors in both London and Los Angeles, the couple is no longer fighting for a happily ever after, they are fighting for a commercially viable ever after. The first path, which analysts give a 30% probability, is the total collapse. In this scenario, the H. Sussex 2026 security bill and the failure of the American lifestyle brand become the final wedge. By the end of 2026, a formal separation is announced. Harry returns to the United Kingdom, not as a hero, but as what insiders call a house arrest royal. He has moved into a secure, secluded cottage on the Windsor estate, kept far from the public eye and the working core of the family. Meanwhile, Meghan remains in California, retaining her title as a vital asset to launch a solo retail empire, effectively becoming the Duchess of Montecito in the influencer space. The second path, with a 20% probability, is the fleeting mirage. This is a desperate attempt to maintain the status quo through B-list survival tactics. The couple continues to appear together in carefully staged social media posts, but behind the scenes, they are living on borrowed time and borrowed liquidity. They rely on high-interest loans from new money billionaires who want to be adjacent to royalty. This leads to a cycle of attending ribbon cuttings for obscure tech firms and hosting mid-tier charity galas just to cover the £500,000 annual police bill. It is a marriage preserved by a PR contract, slowly fading into irrelevance. However, the most realistic path, the one with a 50% probability, is the strategic separation of duties. This is the only scenario that solves the financial math. In this model, the couple adopts a two-continent strategy. Harry spends 6 months of the year in the United Kingdom, rebuilding his Prince of Service brand through the Invictus Games and local advocacy. He earns back his public trust and, crucially, secures a new security mandate from the King. Meghan, meanwhile, remains firmly planted in the California business hub. She operates as the global CEO of the Sussex brand, focusing on media production and venture capital. They remain married on paper to preserve the value of their royal titles, but their lives become a bifurcation of interests. The essential condition for this path is a new financial treaty with King Charles. Reports from within the Duchy of Cornwall suggest that a secret briefing was held last week regarding a reconciliation allowance. The King is reportedly willing to bridge the $10 million gap, but with a non-negotiable ultimatum. The funds are for the protection of my son and grandchildren. They are not for the funding of a Hollywood PR machine. A source close to the negotiations describes a tense video call that took place just before Harry's solo flight. Harry reportedly looked at the budget and said, "We can't keep the house and the security without help." The response from the other side was chillingly practical. "Then go and get the deal. I will wait here to see what you bring back." This is the point of bifurcation. Harry hasn't just flown to London for a visit. He has flown there to negotiate the terms of a new life. If he fails to secure the King's backing, Scenario 1 becomes an immediate reality. If he succeeds, the world is about to see a version of the Sussexes that is unrecognizable from the United Front of 2020. As Harry prepares for his first meeting at the palace tomorrow, the stakes are no longer just about family. They are about the survival of a global brand that is running out of cash. The question is no longer if the structure will change, but who will be left standing when the dust settles in Birmingham. As the sun sets over the Thames today, June 7th, 2026, the global spotlight is fixed on the horizon of Birmingham 2027. To the public, the upcoming Invictus Games represent a homecoming for a prince. But to the accountants at the Home Office and the strategists in Montecito, these games are overshadowed by a far more terrifying figure: $10 million. That is the estimated price tag of the strategic separation. It is the brutal amount of liquid capital Harry needs to secure his family's safety in California while he attempts to reclaim his identity in the United Kingdom. This isn't just about an event. It is about the cost of maintaining a double life across an ocean. For Harry to find his way back to the Prince of Service brand he once held, he must find a way to fund a fortress on one continent while navigating a legal minefield on another. The $10 million deficit isn't just a number on a spreadsheet. It is the ultimate breakpoint for the Sussex brand. But as this breaking story develops, a new, chilling detail has emerged from the streets of London that has sent shockwaves through the royal community. This morning, as Prince Harry stepped out of his black SUV and entered his high-security hotel, the long-lens cameras of the world's media captured a trace of information that was never meant to be analysed. On his left hand, where the band of Welsh gold has sat since 2018, there was nothing. For the first time in 8 years of public life, Harry was seen without his wedding ring. This visual evidence raises the critical question whether this is a simple personal oversight in the rush of a solo international flight, or if this is a calculated silent ultimatum sent directly to the palace. In the world of high-stakes royal PR, nothing is accidental. Every gesture is a signal. Every absence is a statement. Is Harry signaling to the King that he is finally untethered and ready to negotiate his return on the institution's terms? Or has the pressure of the $10 million gap and the failure of the American retail empire finally fractured the foundation of the marriage itself? The Hotel Sussex 2026 dossier at the Home Office is no longer just about security protocols. It has become a ledger of a crumbling partnership. The traces of this fallout are being tracked in real time. From the silent digital purge on their website to the empty finger on Harry's left hand, the the consequences of the last 6 years are converging on this single week in London. Harry is now inside the city. The king is waiting. The security invoice is pending, and the world is watching to see if the prince will walk back into the palace as a husband or as a man who has finally chosen his birthright over his brand. The answers are buried deep within the Birmingham dossier, and the revelations are only just beginning. We are tracking every movement, every legal filing, and every silent signal. If you want to know what happens when Harry meets the king behind closed doors tomorrow, and what the missing ring truly means for the future of the monarchy, you cannot afford to miss our next update. Click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell right now. Join the conversation in the comments. Do you think the missing ring is a sign of a permanent breakpoint? This is the Royal Insider Network. We have the dossiers. We have the data. Stay tuned for the Birmingham files coming in our next broadcast. You are now officially on the inside.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, the pay-per-view royals, landed in Australia today in a fake royal tour that they'll use to make money.
At exactly 6:45 a.m. yesterday, the 14th of April, 2026, the illusion of a royal tour was shattered by a single, red-stamped envelope. While the sun was barely rising over the Sydney Opera House, a courier from the office of the Governor of Victoria bypassed the standard hotel concierge and went straight to the 11th floor of the Intercontinental Sydney. Inside that envelope was a memorandum marked secret.
Now, that's the bit of the tour where they act as if they're still royals on a royal tour, but Prince Harry will later this week give a keynote speech at the Interreg Psychosocial Safety Summit.
It was not an invitation to a state dinner. It was an eviction notice from government-controlled jurisdiction. This is breaking news. If you are watching this on the morning of April 15th, 2026, you are witnessing the first time in modern history that a member of the House of Windsor has been formally requested to vacate a Commonwealth territory's protection. This is not just a diplomatic snub, it is a total collapse of authority. The scene inside room 1102 was anything but regal. Intelligence sources confirm that Meghan Markle was in the final stages of preparing a high-stakes launch for her latest lifestyle venture when the knock came. What followed was a 45-minute legal confrontation that would change the trajectory of this Australian tour forever. Federal security officers, acting on direct orders from the highest levels of the Australian government, stood in the hallway as the couple was informed that their pseudo-tour had officially triggered the Red Zone clause of the Diplomatic Privileges Act of 2026. To understand why this is happening, we have to look at the mechanism of royal protocol. Under the revised laws of 2026, any tour conducted by non-working royals that involves commercial gain or unauthorized media filming is classified as a private commercial venture. The moment Harry and Meghan stepped onto Australian soil to sell mutt and promote a Netflix documentary, they forfeited their right to state-funded security. A witness near the 11th floor elevators recounted the exchange between a senior federal agent and the Duchess. The agent reportedly said, "Ma'am, our orders are clear. As this tour is not sanctioned by Buckingham Palace, the Commonwealth of Australia can no longer provide you with diplomatic immunity or sovereign protection. You have 2 hours to transition to private security." Meghan's response was described as one of sheer disbelief, questioning how the optics would look if they were left unprotected in a foreign country. The agent's reply was cold and final. "Optics are no longer our concern. Compliance is." This is the point where the reality of their independence became a financial nightmare. As of 10 a.m. yesterday morning, Harry and Meghan were stripped of their police escorts. The motorcades are gone. The sirens are silent. Before we dive into the secret documents that reveal exactly who in London signed off on this eviction, I need you to do something. If you believe that royal titles should not be used as a credit card for private gain, hit the like button right now. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell because this story is developing by the hour. And tell me in the comments, do you think Australia is right to kick them out of government protection? I'm reading every single response. The fallout is already cascading through the Australian Parliament. The immediate consequence of the secret memo was the total withdrawal of the New South Wales police presence from the hotel perimeter. Harry and Meghan are now isolated. They are effectively trapped in a luxury hotel, surrounded by private mercenaries that they have to pay for out of their own pockets. But why now? Why on the 14th of April? The answer lies in the pseudo-tour mechanism. By organising a tour that mimics the structure of an official royal visit, complete with hospital visits and community centre lunches, without the approval of the King, the Sussexes have committed what London calls constitutional impersonation. According to the 2026 Act, the moment a pseudo-tour is identified, the host nation is legally bound to treat the participants as private citizens. The Australian government didn't just snub them. They followed a legal script written in the corridors of power in London. This wasn't a mistake. It was a trap. Harry and Meghan landed in Australia, thinking they were the stars of a new royal era. Instead, they found themselves in room 1102, arguing with federal agents while their $50,000 a day security bill started ticking. And this is only the beginning. Behind the scenes, a much larger legal engine is beginning to turn, one that involves the Princess Royal and a set of financial audits that could end the Sussex brand permanently. Stay with us as we move into the darker corners of this trash-for-cash operation. This is high stakes, it is breaking news, and the iron wall is just beginning to close. The humanitarian mask has not just slipped, it has been surgically removed by the cold reality of a balance sheet. To understand the chaos currently unfolding in Sydney on this 15th of April, 2026, one must look past the blurry paparazzi shots and into the heart of what insiders are calling vulture economics. This is the trash-for-cash mechanism, a three-phase monetization engine designed to strip mine the last remnants of royal prestige for personal liquidity. The strategy begins with Phase 1, infiltration. At exactly 10:45 a.m. yesterday, the visit to the Royal Children's Hospital was documented. To the casual observer, it was a prince and his wife visiting sick children. To a media strategist, it was a high-value asset acquisition. Every smile, every cooing sound made at a bedside, and every brave comment was a premeditated content capture. They spent precisely 15 minutes on the floor, just long enough to secure the hero shots required for a global press release, but not long enough to engage in any actual philanthropy. This is the free image phase. By using a hospital as a backdrop, they bypass the millions of dollars in production costs usually required to build a compassionate brand image. Once the saintly imagery is blasted across social media, the mechanism triggers Phase 2, FOMO activation. As of 6 o'clock this morning, the transition from charity to commerce became undeniable. Immediately following the circulation of the hospital photos, invitations were finalized for the Girls' Weekend Wellness Retreat at the Intercontinental Coogee Beach. The price of entry? $3,200 per ticket. This is where the emotional capital harvested from the sick children is converted into a luxury product. The logic is simple. If the Duchess is brave enough to visit a hospital, her wellness secrets must be worth thousands. The sheer audacity of the price point has sent shockwaves through the Australian public. To put this in perspective, for a registered nurse in Sydney working 50-hour weeks on the front lines, $3,200 represents approximately 1.5 months of take-home pay. For a guest at Meghan's retreat, that same amount secures a single group table photograph, a goodie bag, and a disco. This is the point of rupture. It is the moment where the Sussex brand stops being a royal alternative and starts being a predatory commercial enterprise. Then comes Phase 3, the payout. Intelligence suggests that these high-priced wellness interactions are merely a funnel for the Duchess's struggling lifestyle brand. Behind the scenes at the Macaulay Community Centre, witnesses reported seeing boxes of American Riviera orchard products being strategically placed in the background of candid shots. The mechanism is ruthless. Use the children for the image. use the elite for the cash, and use the media to sell the jam. It is a closed-loop system of self-interest that leaves the Australian taxpayer holding the bill for their security. But the question that remains unanswered, and the one that is currently causing panic within the Sussex camp at the Intercontinental Sydney, is not about the money. It is about the source of their influence. While Meghan prepares to sell healing at Coogee Beach, a separate dossier is being compiled in London. It concerns the intellectual property of the Crown and a specific set of trademark violations that could render their entire Australian business model illegal by sunset tomorrow. There is a shadow moving behind the scenes, one that involves the Princess Royal and a set of sovereign audit documents that Harry never expected to see. The Trash for Cash tour is profitable today, but the price of the fallout may be more than even a Montecito bank account can handle. Something was left behind in London, a legal trigger that is about to be pulled. The next hour will determine if the Sussexes leave Australia as celebrities or as defendants. While the Sussexes attempt to maintain their commercial foothold in Sydney, a silent, impenetrable barrier has been erected 10,000 miles away in London. Internal sources at Kensington Palace are now referring to this as the Iron Wall, a coordinated, strategic counter-offensive led by the senior members of the royal family to protect the institution from further commercial exploitation. The days of never complain, never explain, have been replaced by a much more surgical doctrine, totale exclusion. The architect of this isolation is Prince William. At precisely 8 o'clock yesterday morning, a formal directive of total intelligence exclusion was reportedly signed and circulated among all royal households. This is a move with profound security and diplomatic implications. Following the explosive revelations by royal biographer Hugo Vickers regarding the alleged secret recording of the late Queen for a Netflix production, William has moved to cut Harry off from the royal information stream entirely. Harry is no longer privy to the private royal calendar, diplomatic briefings, or even the basic security logs of the family. In the eyes of the heir to the throne, his brother is no longer a family member. He is a security liability and a commercial informant. But the Iron Wall is not just about silence, it is about strategic overshadowing. As Meghan Markle prepared for her $3,200 retreat at Coogee Beach, the Princess of Wales, Catherine, initiated what is being called Operation Shadow. Despite being in a period of careful recovery, Catherine has authorised her Rapid Response PR unit to flood the Australian media space with the legitimate work of the Early Years Foundation at 9:45 a.m. today. While Meghan was pitching high-priced wellness, Catherine's team released a series of pre-recorded, high-impact datasets and personal messages focused on real-world childhood development entirely free of charge to the public. The contrast was devastatingly effective. It positioned Catherine as the Queen of Service against Meghan's Duchess of Commerce. The message from Kensington Palace is clear. Genuine royal work cannot be bought for $3,000. However, the most dangerous threat to the Sussexes comes from the royal enforcer, Princess Anne. As the head of the ongoing internal audit of the sovereign grant, Anne has reportedly uncovered a massive legal overreach. It involves the branding of Meghan's new lifestyle products. A confidential memorandum sent to the Sussex legal team at 11 o'clock GMT outlines a series of unauthorised uses of royal ciphers and crown imagery on the packaging of their artisanal products, including the jam that Meghan is currently promoting in Sydney. According to the 2026 Intellectual Property Protocols of the Crown, the use of any royal association for the sale of perishable goods is a direct violation of the Sandringham Agreement. Anne's ultimatum was cold and final. The Sussexes have exactly 48 hours to cease and desist from using any royal-adjacent branding on their commercial inventory. If they fail to comply, they will not be facing a palace PR statement. They will be facing the London Commercial Court. The pressure is mounting from all sides. While Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, provides the quiet tactical support to those Harry has allegedly maligned, the core of the monarchy has turned into a fortress. Harry and Meghan are currently operating in a vacuum, unaware that the very symbols they are trying to sell are being legally dismantled behind the scenes. As the Sydney sun rises on another day of their tour, the couple remains oblivious to the fact that the iron wall has already closed. But as we look closer at the documents being filed in the London Commercial Court, there is one particular clause that suggests the most significant blow is yet to come. It's a clause that could strip more than just their branding. It could strip their very right to remain in Australia under their current status. The next move from London isn't a whisper, it's a gavel. While the cameras in Sydney remain fixed on the carefully curated smiles of the Sussexes, a far more lethal development has emerged from the stone corridors of the High Court in London. At exactly 10:15 a.m. today, a legal document was unsealed that effectively turns Harry's past into his greatest liability. This is not a tabloid rumour. This is case number Lima, Charlie. 202600412. The plaintiff? The very charity Prince Harry co-founded and once championed as his primary legacy. To understand the severity of this trap, we must examine the specific legal mechanism being triggered. For years, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have utilised non-disclosure agreements as a shield to manage their public image. But the tables have turned. The charity, led by the formidable Sophie Chandora, has filed a massive lawsuit alleging multiple counts of defamation and a direct breach of confidentiality protocols. Chandora, a woman of immense professional standing, is not merely seeking a public apology. She is targeting the one thing the Sussexes need to sustain their Montecito lifestyle: their remaining liquidity in the United Kingdom. According to the unsealed filings, the charity is pursuing a protective freezing order over Harry's residual assets within British jurisdiction. The mechanism is simple but devastating. Step 1. The court identifies a high probability of a breach of contract. Step 2. To prevent the defendant from moving funds to offshore accounts or into the United States, the court freezes all domestic bank accounts and real estate holdings. Step 3. The defendant is forced into a settlement or a high-stakes trial where private communications will be made public record. But who is really behind Sophie Chandora? If you look at the legal advisory team representing the charity, the trail leads back to an unexpected and powerful source. Internal reports suggest that Chandora has been receiving strategic counsel from a circle of elite legal minds who also happen to be the closest advisors to Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh. This is the hidden hand in the royal civil war. Sophie of Edinburgh, often regarded as the late Queen's most trusted confidant, has long been a silent guardian of the monarchy's dignity. The fact that her legal associates are linked to this lawsuit suggests that the enforcer doctrine pioneered by Princess Anne has now spread to every branch of the royal family. This is a coordinated pincer movement. While Anne handles the branding violations in the commercial courts, the Duchess of Edinburgh's network is ensuring that Harry's legal battles at home become a financial black hole. Sophie Chandora is not just a plaintiff. She is the face of a monarchy that is finally fighting back with the same legal tools Harry once used against them. The Trash for Cash tour in Australia was supposed to be a financial lifeline, a way to replenish their dwindling reserves. But if case 202600412 proceeds, every dollar earned from a wellness retreat in Coogee could be swallowed by legal fees and asset freezes before it even reaches a California bank account. As Harry makes his keynote speech at the Safety Summit this week, he may be unaware that his own financial safety net in London is being systematically dismantled. The rock bottom that royal commentators predicted is no longer a metaphor. It is a documented legal reality. And as we dig deeper into the specific evidence Sophie Chandora has submitted to the High Court, we've discovered a single, leaked email that could change everything. It's an email sent from the Montecito mansion at 3 a.m. last October, and its contents are so damaging that they could render the Sussex brand legally radioactive. What exactly did Harry say about the charity's donors when he thought no one was listening? The answer is buried in page 42 of the filing, and it's about to become the loudest headline in London. To understand the sheer velocity of the Sussexes' fall from grace, we must look at the last 15 days through the lens of a forensic timeline. This is the sequence of events that transformed a self-styled royal tour into a desperate retreat. The collapse sequence began not in Sydney, but in the heart of London, in a room where blood should have been thicker than water, but technology proved otherwise. April 1st, 2026. Clarence House, London. Prince Harry arrived for a brief, 45-minute meeting with King Charles. But the shock wasn't the brevity of the meeting, it was the protocol. For the first time in history, a son of the monarch was reportedly subjected to an electronic countermeasures sweep. Before entering the king's private study, Harry was requested to pass through a high-sensitivity security check for listening devices. The message from the palace was absolute. We no longer trust that your conversations are private. We assume they are content for sale. This was the moment the bridge was finally burned. By April 10th, the reality of their pseudo-royal status hit the tarmac at Sydney International Airport. Unlike 2018, there was no government jet, no motorcade, and no red carpet. The couple arrived on a commercial flight, blending into the queue like any other high-profile travellers. The Australian government's refusal to provide a VIP reception was a calculated diplomatic snub, signalling that the state would not recognise a commercial brand as a royal delegation. April 12th marks the day the charity veneer cracked. The visit to the Royal Children's Hospital lasted exactly 15 minutes. But the real scandal broke at 12:45 p.m, when an eagle-eyed staff member noticed a specialised lapel microphone hidden under Harry's blazer. The healing visit was being captured as B-roll for a suspected Netflix Season 2 production. When hospital security intervened, citing the privacy of the sick children, the Sussex team was reportedly escorted to the exit. Compassion had been exposed as cinematography. The diplomatic red card was issued on April 13th. At 3:30 p.m, while the couple was in Melbourne, they were informed that their stay at Government House was being terminated. The reason? A direct violation of the 1986 Australia Act. By using government property to film promotional content for their commercial wellness retreat and jam brand, they had breached the strict rules of political and royal neutrality. For the first time in their lives, they were essentially evicted by a Commonwealth governor. Yesterday, April 14th, the financial walls closed in. As the lawsuit from Sophie Chandora hit the High Court in London, a secondary mechanism was triggered. A forensic audit of the Archwell bank accounts. By 6 p.m. Sydney time, reports surfaced that several large-scale transactions intended for the Trash for Cash tour had been flagged for additional verification. The Sussexes' ability to fund their high-intensity lifestyle was suddenly under a microscopic legal lens. This brings us to today, April 15th, 2026. The atmosphere in Sydney has turned toxic. Meghan Markle remains largely isolated within the confines of her hotel suite as a petition signed by over 50,000 Australian taxpayers reaches the desk of the Prime Minister. The demand is simple. We will not pay for the security of a private commercial venture. Harry and Meghan are no longer on a tour. They are in a state of hotel-bound isolation, watching as their digital and financial footprints are erased by a coordinated royal and legal effort. The timeline shows a couple who thought they could outrun the institution. But as we look at the scheduled events for the next 48 hours, there is one final, devastating entry on the calendar that hasn't been made public yet. It involves a single phone call from the King's private secretary that changed the definition of Harry's future in Australia forever. The words spoken in that call were recorded by a source close to the governor, and they suggest that the return flight to California might be happening much sooner than the Sussexes planned. The question is, who will be on that plane with them? As we stand on the precipice of this diplomatic disaster, the air in Sydney is thick with the scent of an impending endgame. The next 72 hours will determine if the Sussex brand survives or faces a total systematic collapse. Based on the intelligence gathered from both London and Canberra, we have mapped out the 3 most probable trajectories for this disintegrating tour. This is the scenario tree of the Sussex downfall. Scenario 1, with a probability of 30%, is the nuclear counter-offensive. Facing total public rejection, Harry and Meghan may choose to burn the bridge while they are still standing on it. This would involve a rogue, unsanctioned press conference from their hotel suite, where they release never-before-heard recordings of senior royals to distract from their own financial scandals. It is a high-risk, scorched-earth tactic designed to maintain their relevance through chaos. Scenario 2, at 20%, is the midnight flight. In this version of events, the couple quietly vanishes from the Australian public eye under the cover of darkness. They would board a private jet back to California, citing a vague security threat or a family health emergency to explain their sudden departure. This is the coward's exit, a way to avoid the escalating protests without admitting they were forced out by the government. However, Scenario 3 remains the most likely at 50%. The formal rejection. We are receiving reports that the Australian government is preparing an official statement that will formally deny Harry and Meghan's status as national guests. This move would strip them of any remaining diplomatic cover and trigger a final ultimatum from Kung Di in Buckingham. The choice for Harry will be binary. Return to London alone to face a closed-door disciplinary committee, or stay with Meghan and face the permanent, legal removal of their ducal titles. The reason Scenario 3 is so inevitable is simple. Prince William and Princess Anne have finally activated the kill switch. For months, the enforcer and the heir have been compiling a forensic financial dossier that documents every irregularity within the Archwell organization. They aren't just waiting for the tour to fail, they are waiting for Harry to take one more unauthorized step on Australian soil to justify a total seizure of their remaining British assets. William is no longer playing a game of PR, he is playing a game of institutional survival. But even as the financial and political walls close in, a much more chilling detail has emerged from the high-resolution imagery of yesterday's hospital visit. It is a detail that has sent shockwaves through the Royal Collection Trust. Look closely at Meghan Markle's right hand in the photographs with the sick children. She is wearing a gold band set with a rare marquise-cut sapphire. Our investigative team has cross-referenced this with the Royal Archives. This is not a piece of jewelry Meghan owns. This specific sapphire was reported missing from the high-security storage at Kensington Palace in the autumn of 2019. For 7 years, its whereabouts were unknown. Now, it has reappeared on Meghan's finger in the middle of a commercial tour in Sydney. The question is no longer about trash for cash. The question is now about theft. How did a protected bowvert of the British Crown end up in Meghan's private possession? And who within the royal staff was compromised to help her smuggle it out of the United Kingdom? We have just obtained an audio file, 42 seconds of a whispered conversation recorded in a palace hallway that identifies the mole. The truth about this sapphire is the final piece of the puzzle that could send this entire saga from the gossip columns to a criminal court. If you want to see the forensic evidence of the sapphire and hear that leaked audio file, you must act now. Hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and turn on all notifications. We are releasing the sapphire dossier in exactly 6 hours. Leave your comment below. Is this the end for the Duke and Duchess? The clock is ticking, and the iron wall is closing. Stay tuned. 6:30 a.m., April 13th. 2026. Melbourne International Airport. Flight Qantas 94 touches down at Gate 2B, carrying 2 of the most polarizing figures on the planet. But as the doors open, the expected roar of thousands is replaced by a chilling, hollow silence. There is no red carpet, no government motorcade, no official representative from the palace. This is the moment the world realized the Sussex brand was no longer a royal asset, but a commercial liability. Welcome to a breaking investigative deep dive into what experts are calling the Great Australian Catastrophe. If you are watching this on the morning of April 17th, 2026, You are witnessing the final hours of a tour that has devolved into a public relations dumpster fire. Before we peel back the layers of this high-stakes grift, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and comment truth below to join the thousands demanding accountability from those using titles for profit. The timeline of this disaster is a masterclass in strategic failure. On that Monday morning, the Duke and Duchess emerged not as guests of the state, but as private citizens on a commercial jet. The immediate consequence was a diplomatic cold shoulder that sent shockwaves through London. Sources close to Prince William and Catherine suggest the Prince of Wales has issued a strict no-contact directive to his staff, effectively isolating the Sussexes as they attempted to mimic the pomp of their 2018 visit. By 12:15 p.m. on April 14th, the couple arrived at the Royal Children's Hospital. While the cameras captured Meghan Markle embracing patients, the real story was unfolding on the digital back end. Meghan was wearing a silk Oscar de la Renta dress, valued at over $1,000. Within 120 minutes of the photos hitting the wires, that exact dress was featured on her new artificial intelligence project, One-Off, described as the Spotify of fashion. The mechanism here is as cynical as it is effective. Step 1. Use a hospital for sick children as a free backdrop for high-end photography. Step 2. Trigger real-time sales through a proprietary AI app. Step 3. Convert human compassion into direct retail revenue. Critics are horrified, noting that while Princess Anne and the Duchess of Edinburgh, Sophie, perform thousands of unpublicized engagements for the Crown, the Sussexes appear to be treating a cancer ward like a commercial catalogue. One commentator noted that while Harry looked present in the moment, Meghan's awareness of the camera was absolute. Every smile, every tilt of the head, was a calculated frame for a future sale. The tension reached a breaking point on April 15th at Whitton Oval. During a speech for the Movember charity, Harry reportedly described modern parenting as an upgrade on previous generations. The implication was a direct hit to King Charles III. We are hearing reports that the King, who is currently managing a serious health battle, felt the comment was a public betrayal of his efforts as a single parent. While Harry lectured the crowd on mental well-being, the authority staircase was collapsing beneath him. At 2 p.m., on April 16th, an organised petition was delivered to the Victoria Police Headquarters. It contained 52,400 signatures. The demand was simple: stop using Australian tax dollars to fund the security of a private commercial venture. The mechanism of this ATM strategy is now under legal scrutiny. The couple reportedly demands high-level police protection under their royal titles, while simultaneously selling tickets to a wellness retreat in Sydney for $4,000 per person. The contrast is staggering. As of this morning, April 17th, 2026, while the Princess of Wales maintains a dignified silence during her recovery, the Sussexes are reportedly facing a financial point of failure. Sales for the upcoming yoga retreat have stalled, with over 300 tickets remaining unsold despite the massive media blitz. Harry is now reportedly in a state of psychological distress at a private Sydney resort. The dream of 2018 has become the nightmare of 2026. Is this the end of the quasi-royal tour? Can a brand built on victimhood survive when the world starts looking at the receipts? Drop a comment below. Do you think they should be allowed to keep their titles while selling fashion on the back of hospital visits? Subscribe now as we prepare to release the second chapter of this investigation, where we uncover the secret Sussex survivors dossier. Don't go anywhere, the real story is just beginning. Behind the velvet curtains of the Level 4 recovery ward at Melbourne Children's Hospital, the air was thick with a tension that no filtered photograph could capture. While the world saw a duchess leaning in for a compassionate embrace, investigators on the ground noticed something far more clinical. This was not the spontaneous warmth of a working royal, it was a high-production commercial lookbook disguised as a humanitarian visit. Analysts have pointed out that Meghan's camera awareness in that room reached a level of professional precision usually reserved for a film set. Every tilt of the chin, Every hand placement on a child's shoulder was perfectly aligned with the lens of her pre-selected photographers. But the real mystery lies in the mechanism operating beneath the surface of this visit. While the public consumed the emotional imagery, a sophisticated digital trap was being sprung. Documents filed with the Division of Corporations in Delaware reveal the quiet registration of a trademark titled One Off. This isn't just a fashion label. It is a proprietary AI-driven platform designed to link press imagery directly to a global e-commerce engine. The mechanism works with ruthless efficiency. As the shutter clicks in a Melbourne hospital, the metadata is synced in real time. Within minutes, the silk fabric draped over the Duchess is identified, tagged, and uploaded to the One Off application. This creates a direct bridge between a child's recovery room and a consumer's shopping cart. It is an unprecedented breach of traditional royal protocol, which strictly forbids the monetization of charitable engagements. Experts in medical ethics are already raising alarms about the monetization of pathology, using the vulnerability of sick children to drive retail traffic. To understand the depth of this calculation, we have to look at the authority staircase provided by the Sussex Survivors Squad, a group of former aides who have witnessed the inner workings of this machine. They have leaked internal communications, including emails sent at 4 a.m. on the day of the hospital visit. These records don't discuss patient care or charitable goals. Instead, they provide tactical instructions on lighting angles and wardrobe focus frames, ensuring that the brand remained the center of the narrative, not the hospital. Compare this to the standard set by the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh or the Princess Royal, Anne. When the genuine members of the royal family visit such institutions, the cameras are often secondary, and the commercial potential is zero. In London, the reaction from the Prince and Princess of Wales has been one of quiet horror. Sources indicate that William views this quasi-royal approach as a parasitic use of a legacy they claim to have abandoned, while Catherine focuses on her path to recovery with a dignity that requires no metadata tags. Her brother-in-law and his wife appear to be treating the Commonwealth as a series of backdrops for a luxury startup. The question that remains is one of motive. If the goal is truly philanthropy, why is every gesture tied to a Delaware-registered business entity? Why does the pity party narrative always seem to coincide with a product launch? As this tour moves toward the high-stakes wellness retreat in Sydney, the cracks in the facade are beginning to gape. The elite Australian public, known for their no-rubbish attitude, is starting to see the strings. What happens when the audience stops watching the performance and starts auditing the intent? The answers are hidden in the financial filings and the deteriorating mood behind the scenes at the Sussex's private compound. The curtain is falling, and what's behind it might be far colder than the public ever imagined. Language is a weapon in the hands of a professional victim, and at Whitton Oval in Melbourne, Prince Harry pulled the trigger. During a high-profile session on mental well-being, the Duke of Sussex dropped a single word that has sent a tectonic shudder through the halls of Buckingham Palace. While discussing his role as a father, Harry described his children as an upgrade on the previous generation of parenting. On the surface, it sounds like modern therapy speak, the kind of aspirational dialogue favored in Montecito. But for those who understand the nuance of royal messaging, this wasn't an observation, it was a calculated strike. To call your children an upgrade is to explicitly label your own father's parenting as a legacy system, faulty, outdated, and in need of replacement. This remark comes at a time when King Charles III is not only navigating the immense burden of the crown, but is also engaged in a grueling battle with cancer. Critics are pointing to the sheer historical blindness of Harry's narrative. King Charles was a man who, in the wake of the tragedy of 1997, had to navigate the impossible terrain of being a single parent to 2 grieving boys while preparing to lead a nation. To dismiss that profound struggle as a version of parenting that required an upgrade is being described by royal insiders as a metaphorical knife in the back. The reaction from the core of the royal family has moved beyond mere disappointment. It has transitioned into a strategy of total containment. Sources close to the Prince of Wales indicate that William has officially entered a state of absolute blackout. The mechanism of this response is a defensive firewall. William has reportedly issued a firm directive to all household staff. Zero information regarding the family's private life, particularly Catherine's medical recovery, is to reach the Sussexes. The Prince of Wales is no longer just a brother, he is a protector. After the unprecedented leaks in the memoir Spare, the fear is that any fragment of information shared with Harry will eventually be packaged and sold as part of a future streaming deal or a mental health keynote. The Princess Royal, Anne, often considered the family's moral compass and the hardest-working member of the institution, is reportedly appalled. Observers suggest she viewed the upgrade remark as a total betrayal of the tradition of service. For Anne, the royal role is about duty that looks outward, not an endless, narcissistic introspection that looks inward for flaws in one's own lineage. Adding to this atmospheric tension is the presence of Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, who is currently conducting her own engagements in remote, rural Australia. The contrast is devastating for the Sussex brand. While Meghan Markle is accused of using hospital wards as commercial sets for her one-off fashion platform, Sophie is on the ground, engaging with local communities without the glare of Hollywood lighting or the pay-to-play access tiers. One side is performing service, the other is performing for a paycheck. This quasi-royal tour has exposed a deepening fracture that may be permanent. As Harry continues his cycle of public therapy, he seems increasingly isolated from the very family he claims he wants to reconcile with. In London, the silence is deafening, and in Australia, the public mood is shifting from curiosity to a sharp, cynical realization. As we move closer to the final events in Sydney, the question is no longer whether a reconciliation is possible, but rather, what version of the truth Harry will try to sell next when the current upgrade fails to find an audience. The stakes are rising, and the palace is no longer just watching, they are closing the gates. To understand why the streets of Melbourne and Sydney are currently vibrating with a specific type of Australian fury, one must look past the stage smiles and delve into the ledger. This is not a story of a family visit. It is a breakdown of a financial strategy that critics are calling parasitic power. The mechanism is as sophisticated as it is cynical, and for the first time, the ATM Australia blueprint is being laid bare for the public to see. The strategy operates through a three-step cycle designed to privatize profits while socializing the costs. Step 1 involves the tactical use of the Duke and Duchess titles. Although Harry and Meghan are no longer working royals, they insist on the use of these designations in all official correspondence with the Australian authorities. This is not about prestige, it is about security protocols. Internationally, these titles trigger a high-value individual assessment. Even without a guest of government status, the sheer weight of their past association forces local authorities to provide a level of protection that a standard celebrity would never receive. This leads directly to step 2. The activation of public funding. By positioning themselves as royal-adjacent figures, the Sussexes effectively force the state of Victoria and the New South Wales governments to dip into their public safety budgets. We are talking about police motorcades, specialized tactical units, and logistical cordons that are estimated to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. On paper, the couple claims the trip is privately funded, but that claim only covers their luxury accommodation and business-class flights. The massive security tail required to move them through a city is being paid for by the Australian taxpayer. Step 3 is where the ATM metaphor becomes a reality. Under the umbrella of this state-funded security, the couple hosts high-priced, exclusive events. The upcoming Her Best Life Wellness Retreat in Sydney is a prime example. With tickets priced between $2,000 and $4,000, the revenue generated is entirely private. This is the Sussex arbitrage. They use the public's police force to secure a venue where they charge that same public an astronomical fee for a few hours of guided manifestation and sound healing. The consequence of this mechanism is a deepening sense of exploitation. In the eyes of many locals, Australia is not being treated as a sovereign nation to be served, but as a lucrative municipality to be harvested. This is why the petition at the Victoria Police Headquarters, now boasting over 52,400 signatures, is so significant. It is a formal demand for an audit of the security-to-profit ratio of this tour. The mechanism is now being questioned by legal experts, who argue that if an event is a commercial venture, the organizers, not the state, should foot the entire bill for security. The ATM strategy relies on the public not understanding how the gears turn. It relies on the distraction of a hospital visit to mask the metadata-linked fashion sales, and the philanthropy of a football match to mask the $3,000 ticket prices for a retreat. But as of April 17, 2026, the Australian public has stopped looking at the performance and started looking at the bill. The mood in Sydney is no longer one of excitement, but of a creditor waiting for payment. As the couple prepares for their final stretch, the question hanging over the harbour is simple. How much longer can the Sussexes charge the world for a service they no longer provide? The answer may be hidden in the empty seats of their most expensive events. The atmospheric tension surrounding this Australian tour reached a fever pitch this week when Meghan Markle leaned into her most controversial narrative yet, the legend of the global victim. During a session focused on digital safety, the Duchess of Sussex claimed that she had been the most trolled person in the world for the last 10 years, describing a decade of non-stop online bullying. But as this statement echoed through the community halls of Melbourne and Sydney, it hit a wall of cold, hard reality that no PR team could dismantle. The optics of this claim were particularly jarring. Meghan delivered these remarks while standing alongside representatives of Australia's Indigenous populations, communities that have faced centuries of systemic oppression, land appropriation, and genuine physical and cultural erasure. To stand in the presence of those who have survived institutionalized hardship and complain about Twitter comments was described by local commentators as a tone-deaf exercise in narcissism. The contrast was impossible to ignore. On one side, historical trauma. On the other, the grievances of a multi-millionaire living in a Montecito mansion who refuses to disconnect from the platforms she claims are destroying her. Critics are now asking a question that has become the anthem of this tour. Why not just close the laptop? For 10 years, the Duchess has had every resource available to exit the digital arena. Unlike the vulnerable youth she claims to champion, she possesses the financial and social security to simply walk away from the screen. Instead, the mechanism of her public identity seems to require this constant state of conflict. It is what analysts call the victimhood flip, a psychological maneuver where a public figure uses their perceived trauma as a shield against any form of legitimate accountability or criticism. By labeling all dissent as trolling, the Sussexes effectively attempt to outlaw public opinion. However, the investigation trace tells a much more revealing story. While Meghan claims to be the most hated person on the planet, social media engagement metrics tell a story not of active hate, but of growing irrelevance. Data analysts monitoring the 2026 tour have confirmed that Meghan's digital engagement, the likes, shares, and genuine interest has plummeted by 40% compared to their high watermark in 2018. The public isn't trolling in the numbers she suggests. They are simply moving on. The most damning evidence of this engagement decay didn't happen online. It happened on the 4th floor of the Royal Children's Hospital on April 14th. The real-world metric was that strange, hesitant silence that greeted the couple as they walked through the halls. It wasn't a room full of trolls. It was a room full of people who were no longer captivated by the Sussex stardust. This silence is the one thing the Sussex brand cannot monetize. You can sell a dress through an AI app, and you can sell a ticket to a wellness retreat, but you cannot buy back the electric buzz of a public that once truly believed in you. As the tour enters its final 48 hours, the most trolled narrative is beginning to look like a desperate attempt to regain a spotlight that is rapidly dimming. Behind the scenes in Sydney, reports are emerging of a hunker-down mentality within the Sussex camp. The discrepancy between the victim narrative and the ATM business model is becoming too wide to bridge. In the quiet corners of the palace, the royal workers are reportedly observing this collapse with a mixture of vindication and profound sadness for the institution. The laptop may still be open, but the world is starting to look away. What happens when the most trolled person realizes the world isn't angry anymore, it's just bored? The answer lies in the empty seats of the Sydney Harbour. As the sun sets over the Sydney Harbour on this April 17, 2026, the ATM tour of Harry and Meghan has reached what experts are calling the fracture point. The curated smiles have vanished, replaced by a frantic, behind-the-scenes scramble that suggests the tour hasn't just failed, it has fundamentally broken the Sussex machinery. Based on the data, the diplomatic cold shoulder, and the sheer financial weight of this disaster, our investigative team has modelled 3 potential scenarios for the immediate future of the Duke and Duchess. The first, and most likely scenario, holding a 60% probability, is a total divergence of their public identities. This is the breakdown and brand outcome. Prince Harry is reportedly on the verge of a significant psychological collapse. The pressure of mimicking a royal role he claims to hate, combined with the hostile reception from the Australian public, has reached a breaking point. While Harry retreats into the darkness of their private Sydney suite, Meghan Markle is expected to move in the opposite direction. Analysts suggest she will use the one-off fashion platform to strike out as a solo commercial juggernaut, effectively decoupling her brand from her husband's deteriorating public image. In this scenario, Harry becomes a recluse in Montecito, while Meghan completes her transformation into a global retail titan. The second scenario, with a 30% probability, involves a tactical retreat to California to launch a counter-offensive. This would likely be a new multi-part documentary series titled something like The Cold Continent, aimed at reframing the Australian public's indifference as a coordinated campaign of bullying and racism. This is the tried-and-true Sussex playbook. When the reality of the present fails, sell a re-edited version of the past. The final, and most extreme scenario, carries only a 10% probability. The nuclear option from Buckingham Palace. This would involve King Charles III and Prince William finally moving to formally request the removal of their titles to protect the crown from further commercial exploitation. While this would be the best outcome for the stability of the monarchy, the legal complexities make it the least likely to happen overnight. Why is scenario 1 the most realistic? Because for the first time we are seeing a point of failure in their professional synergy. Meghan's relentless commercial drive, symbolized by those 4 a.m. emails regarding fashion angles, is now in direct conflict with Harry's fragile emotional state. He appears to be a man mourning a life he lost, while she appears to be a CEO managing a startup that just missed its quarterly earnings. As we conclude this breaking news investigation, the most chilling detail isn't the empty seats or the 52,000 signatures on a petition. It is the Home Office ultimatum. We have received reports that an official courier from the United Kingdom's Home Office has delivered a private dossier to the couple's security detail this morning. The contents reportedly involve a formal review of their residency status and the international use of their titles for non-diplomatic, commercial venture. Is this the final sunset for the Hollywood royals? While Harry sits in silence in a darkened room overlooking the Sydney Opera House, the digital machine keeps humming, and the most haunting question remains: if Meghan is truly the victim she claims to be, why is the metadata still being uploaded? Who is really controlling the narrative and the laptop at 4 in the morning? The Sussex brand is at a crossroads, and the world is finally auditing the truth. If this investigation opened your eyes to the mechanism behind the fake royal tour, show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing to our channel for the next emergency update. Don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss our upcoming deep dive into the Home Office dossier. What do you think Harry's next move will be? Tell us in the comments, we're reading every single one. Thank you for watching. 10:33 a.m. April 15th, 2026. While the world watches the sunrise over the Pacific, a digital purge is quietly unfolding on the servers of the world's largest photo agencies. If you search for the high-profile images from last Friday night's exclusive gathering in Montecito, you will find something deeply unsettling. The frames are vanishing. One by one, the visual record of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex at the home of Netflix CEO Ted Sarandos is being scrubbed from existence. This is not a technical glitch. This is a total containment of a public relations disaster that occurred exactly 5 days ago, 10 p.m. sharp on the night of April 10th, 2026. A black SUV was seen exiting the side gate of the Sarandos estate long before the evening's festivities had reached their peak. Inside that vehicle were Harry and Meghan. They didn't leave because of a prior engagement. They were asked to exit. Sources within the production circle of the hit series Beef Season 2 described the scene as a, quote, necessary removal, end quote. They were ushered out before the guest of honor, Academy Award nominee Carey Mulligan, had even stepped through the front door. Ask yourself, how does a couple who once commanded the global stage find themselves being treated like uninvited wedding crashers at the home of their own business benefactor? The answer lies in a deliberate choice of silk. Meghan Markle arrived at the black and white themed tastemaker event wearing a vibrant, high-gloss shade of chartreuse green. This was not a mistake. Every fashion insider in the room immediately recognized the aggression behind that color. Chartreuse has been Carey Mulligan's signature color throughout her entire promotional tour for Beef Season 2. By wearing that specific hue, Meghan wasn't just breaking a dress code, she was attempting a visual hijacking of the guest of honor's spotlight. Witnesses say the atmosphere turned icy the moment Meghan entered the west wing of the mansion. The hosts had requested a neutral palette of black and white so that Carey Mulligan would be the only splash of color in the room. Meghan's choice was a declaration of war against the evening's protocol. One guest overheard a whispered exchange near the bar where a publicist noted that Meghan had never met a room she didn't try to make about herself. But the tension escalated from visual to physical. Reports indicate that Meghan's penchant for unsolicited physical closeness triggered the final breaking point. During a signature full-body embrace with the hostess, Nicole Vance, Meghan reportedly left visible marks of deodorant and makeup across the shoulder of Nicole's custom-made gown. The hostess was forced to retreat to her private quarters for an emergency wardrobe change. Narrated accounts from those standing near the foyer describe a humiliated Prince Harry leaning in to speak with Ted Sarandos. Harry was reportedly heard saying, "I am so sorry, Ted. She didn't mean to cause a distraction. We simply misunderstood the sensitivity of the dress code." Sarandos, however, remained unmoved. He had recently received a CBE nomination from King Charles himself, and his loyalty to the Crown's new era of dignity clearly outweighed his patience for Hollywood theatrics. The directive was clear. The Sussexes had to go before Carey Mulligan arrived. Before we dive deeper into the Variety investigation that predicted this fallout, hit the like button and subscribe to the dossier. We are tracking this story in real time as the couple lands in Australia. Leave a comment below. Do you think this was a simple fashion mistake or a calculated move to steal the headlines? We want to hear your take. The disappearance of the Getty Images photographs is the final piece of the puzzle. When a celebrity is confident in their standing, they want every frame published. When a brand is in a death spiral, they scrub the record. Within hours of the party, images of Meghan grinning alongside a clearly uncomfortable Nicole Vance began to vanish. What remains are 2 or 3 carefully curated shots that suggest a warmth that simply wasn't there. This incident is the culmination of a disastrous month. In March 2026, Variety published a scathing report detailing how Netflix leadership had reached a breaking point. The $100 million dream has been downgraded to a, quote, first look arrangement, end quote. In Hollywood terms, that is a polite way of saying the bank is closed. The manufacturing, the marketing, and the infrastructure for Meghan's lifestyle brand have been pulled. As they touch down in Sydney today, the shadows of the Montecito expulsion follow them. Over 34,000 Australians have already signed a petition demanding no taxpayer funds be spent on their security. The tickets for Harry's mental health summit have been slashed to half price to fill empty seats. The Hollywood bubble has finally burst, and the couple is now finding out what happens when you are no longer invited to the table, but are instead the cautionary tale whispered about in the corners of the room. The question remains, who gave the order to delete the photos? Was it Netflix protecting their star, or Archwell trying to hide the evidence of a social execution? Stay tuned as we unlock the next chapter of this breaking report. To understand why the lights went out in Montecito on the night of April 10th, we must look at the structural collapse that preceded it. The expulsion was not a sudden impulse from Netflix leadership. It was the final stage of a strategic liquidation that began exactly 9 months ago. By examining the precise sequence of events, a pattern of desperation emerges, a couple realizing that their Hollywood currency has officially hit zero. The first major tremor occurred in July 2025. This was the moment Netflix quietly signaled the end of the dream. The original $100 million development deal was allowed to expire. It was replaced by a first-look arrangement. In the brutal hierarchy of the entertainment industry, this is the equivalent of being moved from the executive suite to the waiting room. No more guaranteed funding for infrastructure, no more marketing budgets for jam or lifestyle products, and zero commitment to produce. Netflix stopped being a partner and started being a landlord, waiting for the lease to run out. By March 2026, the industry's most powerful publication, Variety, published what many insiders called a social autopsy. The report detailed a toxic level of tension between the Sussexes and Netflix executives. The most telling detail wasn't in the text, but in the digital footprint, Ted Sarandos. The man who once championed their move to California officially unfollowed Meghan's lifestyle brand. In the world of high-stakes networking, an unfollow from a CEO is a public divorce. The contrast became unbearable on April 1, 2026. While the Sussexes were fighting for relevance in California, Carrie Mulligan was standing in Windsor Castle. King Charles III personally invested her as a commander of the Order of the British Empire. This moment bridged the gap between the British Crown and the Hollywood elite, leaving the Sussexes on a shrinking island. Ted Sarandos himself had recently been honoured by the British government, creating a new alliance that made Harry and Meghan's accusations against the royal family a direct liability to Netflix's business interests. This leads us to the micro-timeline of the disaster on April 10th. At 1900 hours, Meghan entered the Sarandos residence. The dress code was a strict black and white to ensure the guest of honour, Carrie Mulligan, remained the visual focal point. Meghan arrived in chartreuse green. This was a calculated breach of protocol designed to force herself into every promotional photograph. It was a play for the headlines, an attempt to signal to the world that she was still the star of the Netflix stable. By 20:30 hours, the strategy backfired physically. During a forced display of intimacy, Meghan engaged in a full-body embrace with Nicole Avance, the hostess. The result was a ruined custom gown and an atmosphere of immediate hostility. Witnesses described the hostess's reaction as one of profound violation. At 2100 hours, the social execution was finalized. The Sussexes were asked to leave. It was here that the most staggering image of the night occurred. Prince Harry, fifth in line to the throne, standing in a hallway, apologizing to a corporate executive for his wife's, quote, lack of sensitivity. The hierarchy had flipped. The prince was no longer a guest of honor. He was a supplicant trying to save a dying contract. The fallout was instantaneous. By the morning of April 11th, the digital purge began on Getty Images. But the damage had already crossed the Pacific. As of today, April 15th, 34,000 Australians have signed a formal petition protesting their current visit. The influencer blackout in Sydney is now absolute. No major brand or public figure is willing to be photographed with them. The timeline is clear. The Montecito expulsion was the tipping point, but the momentum of their fall is now reaching terminal velocity. One question remains: if the world's largest streaming giant has deleted their images, what exactly is left of the Sussex brand? The answer may lie in the legal documents surfacing from the Charity Commission's latest inquiry. To the casual observer, the choice of a chartreuse silk gown in a room of black and white was a fashion faux pas, but to the media analysts tracking the desperate maneuvers of the Sussex brand, this was an attempt at a tactical maneuver known as infiltration PR. This is a high-stakes, three-step mechanism designed to hijack prestige from a distance, and today, on April 15th, we can see exactly how that mechanism failed and why the consequences were so severe. The first step of infiltration PR is the visual strobe effect. By deliberately violating a strict black and white dress code, the subject ensures that every camera lens in the room is biologically forced to track them. In a monochromatic environment, chartreuse acts as a visual siren. Meghan knew that photographers for major agencies like Getty would be compelled to capture the contrast. This is a way of bypassing the guest list hierarchy. You don't need to be the guest of honor if you are the only person the camera sensors can properly expose for. It was a calculated effort to ensure that when the tastemaker photos were published, Meghan Markle would be the first thing the eye perceived. The second step is the intimacy override. This is where the infamous claw and the full-body hug come into play. By initiating intense physical contact with powerful figures in this case, Nicole Levant's Meghan attempts to manufacture a narrative of insider status for the public record. A photograph of a hug suggests a deep personal bond that overrides a bad business report in Variety magazine. It is a visual counter-offensive. If the public sees Meghan laughing and clutching the hand of the CEO's wife, they are less likely to believe the reports that the $100 million deal is collapsing. However, the mechanism failed when the physical contact became intrusive, resulting in the ruin of the hostess's wardrobe and a breach of personal boundaries that Hollywood elite simply do not tolerate. The third and final step was the association bypass. The ultimate goal of the evening was a single frame: Meghan Markle standing shoulder to shoulder with Carey Mulligan. If that photograph had been captured and released, it would have been used to imply a creative link between Meghan and the success of Beef Season 2. It is the art of prestige rubbing, using someone else's Academy Award caliber momentum to mask one's own lack of production output. If Meghan is in the frame with the star of the year, she is, by extension, still a star. But on the night of April 10th, the mechanism hit a corporate firewall. Netflix leadership didn't just witness the tactic, they anticipated it. When the couple was asked to leave before Carey Mulligan arrived, it was a deliberate move to prevent the association bypass from ever occurring. They denied Meghan the golden frame she so desperately needed to save her brand. What followed was the most brutal part of the corporate response: the Getty purge. In the industry, this is known as a visual liquidation. By exercising their rights as the event hosts, Netflix representatives were able to have the candid, unapproved shots of the Sussexes removed from the primary press archives. It is a digital execution. When the industry purges your images from a major event, they aren't just saying you were a bad guest, they are declaring that you are no longer part of the professional ecosystem. As we look at the empty chairs at the Sydney events today, the question isn't just about a dress or a hug. It's about what happens when the very people who funded your lifestyle decide to delete you from the record. If the photos are gone, did the power ever truly exist? The silence from Montecito is deafening, but the digital footprints tell a story of a door that has been locked from the inside. The scene in the hallway of Ted Sarandis's mansion, where a prince was overheard apologizing to a corporate executive, was not merely a moment of social awkwardness. It was a symptom of a much deeper, structural fracture in the Sussexes' remaining pillars of authority. To understand the desperation behind Harry's apology, one must look beyond the guest list and into the active compliance files currently being scrutinized by the Charity Commission. As of today, April 15, 2026, The Duke of Sussex is locked in a high-stakes legal confrontation that threatens the very foundation of his humanitarian identity. The central point of failure is Centrebale, the charity Harry co-founded 2 decades ago. The prince has recently launched what legal analysts describe as a scorched-earth legal attack against the organization's chair, Dr. Sophie Chandilara, accusing her of telling what he termed, quote, blatant lies, end quote. But this is where the authority staircase becomes a dangerous descent for the prince. On the first tier, we have the records. The Charity Commission has officially opened a compliance case into the internal governance of the organization. This is not a routine check. It is a formal regulatory response to allegations of institutional instability. On the second tier, we have the adversary. Dr. Sophie Chandilara is not a tabloid journalist or a social media critic. She is a powerhouse legal mind and a former executive at Meta. She is a woman who, as industry insiders put it, does not suffer fools gladly. When a former royal accuses a lawyer of her caliber of lying, the legal mechanism triggered is often swift and unforgiving. On the third tier, we see the consequences. By publicly feuding with his own chair, Harry is losing the very thing that made him valuable to Hollywood: his status as a principled leader. If he cannot maintain order within the organizations he founded, his brand as a global changemaker evaporates. This brings us back to that desperate apology in Montecito. Why was Harry so eager to placate Ted Sarandos? Because Sarandos was the last financial shield standing between the Sussexes and total isolation. With Netflix pulling the infrastructure for Meghan's brand and the Charity Commission breathing down Harry's neck, the couple is losing their institutional protection. Ted Sarandos isn't just a CEO to them anymore. He was supposed to be the gatekeeper to their future survival. But as the King's recent honours list proves, the gatekeeper has found a new set of keys. By honouring Carey Mulligan and building ties with major Hollywood executives, the British Crown has effectively recolonised the high ground that Harry and Meghan thought they owned in California. The mechanism of this fallout is precise. First, the loss of institutional trust triggers a regulatory inquiry. Second, that inquiry makes corporate partners like Netflix view the couple as a compliance risk. Third, that risk leads to the termination of the financial shield. While the couple attempts to project an image of success in Australia today, the reality is far more fragile. Harry is no longer just fighting for a contract. He is fighting a compliance battle against the very people who know his secrets best. As Dr. Chandilara prepares her response to his accusations, the industry is bracing for a revelation that could make the Montecito expulsion look like a minor inconvenience. If the Duke's own co-founded charity is the source of the blatant lies he fears, what happens when the truth is finally entered into the court record? The shadow over the Sydney tour isn't just coming from the public petitions, it's coming from the legal dossiers being compiled in London and Washington. As the clock strikes noon in Sydney on this Wednesday, April 15th, 2026, the visual narrative being beamed across the globe looks familiar, yet the underlying data tells a story of profound rejection. To the casual observer, the images of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex walking through the streets of Melbourne and Sydney suggest a triumphant return to the site of their first major success in 2018. But a look into the operational logistics and the ticket ledgers reveals that this is not a royal tour. It is a desperate, self-funded promotional hustle, and the Australian public is not buying what they are selling. The most glaring evidence of this brand decay can be found in the ticket sales for Harry's Mental Health Summit in Melbourne. Originally, seats were marketed at a staggering $2,000 Australian dollars each, a price point intended to signal global elite status. However, as the event date approached, the organisers were forced into a humiliating retreat. Prices were slashed to $1,000, a 50% reduction, and even then, the venue remained visibly under capacity. When a Prince of the Blood has to offer a fire sale on his own presence, the authority staircase hasn't just crumbled, it has collapsed. In Sydney, the Duchess's wellness retreat is facing an even more embarrassing crisis of transparency. The event was marketed as a closed-door, intimate experience, but the reality is far more defensive. We have documented a specific PR fracture involving a high-level media professional who purchased a full-price ticket. The moment the organizers realized this attendee worked within the shopping and media industry, her access was summarily revoked. The exchange was cold and calculated. The attendee went from an invited guest to an excluded attendee via an email that offered no explanation other than a sudden change in eligibility. Why the secrecy? Because a wellness retreat that charges $3,000 is not about wellness. It is about controlling a narrative that is currently spiraling. If professional media is allowed inside, the illusion of magic and luxury might be replaced by the reality of a scripted influencer event. This exclusion is part of what industry insiders are calling the influencer blackout. In 2021, a similar event held by Gwyneth Paltrow in Sydney saw every major socialite and brand ambassador in the country clamoring for a seat. Today, the Sussexes are finding themselves isolated. Major Australian influencers are reportedly declining invitations to be photographed with Meghan, fearing that the Montecito purge seen on Getty Images last week might be contagious. No one wants their brand associated with a couple that has been frozen out by the CEO of Netflix. In a tactical attempt to scrub the chartreuse scandal from the public consciousness, Meghan has pivoted to what PR experts call humanitarian props. Over the last 48 hours, her itinerary has been filled with visits to children's hospitals and homeless shelters for women. While these visits are framed as selfless acts, the timing is impossible to ignore. It is a classic move to regain the moral high ground after being accused of ruining a hostess's gown and violating a dress code at a private party. But the Australian public is proving to be a difficult audience to manipulate. Over 34,000 taxpayers have signed a formal petition demanding that not a single cent of public money be used to facilitate this private promotional tour. The distinction is critical. In 2018, they were representatives of the Crown. In 2026, they are private citizens using sick children and veterans as a backdrop for a brand that is currently fighting for its life. As they move toward the final leg of this journey, the tension is visible. The manic expressions captured by local photographers mirror the desperation seen at the Sarandos estate. The promotional tour was supposed to be their comeback, their proof to Hollywood that they still have pull. Instead, it has become a ledger of half-price tickets and excluded media. The question is no longer whether they can conquer Australia, it's whether they can even afford the flight home. Stay with us as we uncover the final keek ban for the Sydney closing ceremony. As we stand at this crossroads on April 15, 2026, the data suggests we are no longer looking at a temporary PR setback, but the final descent of a global brand. The dossier has analysed the market variables, the contractual deadlines, and the social purging seen in Montecito to project the three most likely trajectories for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. These are the three branches of the scenario tree that will define the remainder of this decade. The first branch, the worst-case scenario, focuses on the fast-approaching deadline of July 2026. In this kick ban, Netflix exercises its final exit clause, officially terminating the first look arrangement and ending the Sussexes' presence on the platform. Without the manufacturing and marketing infrastructure of a global streaming giant, Meghan's lifestyle brand is left orphaned. In the brutal economy of Hollywood, a project that has been publicly dropped by Netflix becomes radioactive. No other major studio or venture capital firm will touch a brand that carries the Montecito purge stigma. This leads to a total institutional collapse, forcing the couple to pivot from global players to niche media figures, struggling to secure even minor endorsement deals. The second branch, the middle case scenario, is what insiders call the B-list pivot. Here, the couple leans heavily into the footage from their current Australian tour. They will likely release self-produced content through their own channels, declaring the visit a, quote, resounding success, end quote. Regardless of the ticket sales or public petitions, they become perpetual influencers, famous for being famous, but lacking any real seat at the tables of power. They may survive financially by selling access to their personal lives, but the dream of a media empire is replaced by a cycle of reality-style promotional content, operating strictly at an influencer scale. However, the most realistic scenario is the one that is currently playing out behind the scenes. This branch identifies a growing professional and personal rift. Prince Harry's apology to Ted Sarandos was a pivotal moment. It signaled a man who is beginning to realize that his wife's tactics are incompatible with his survival in elite circles. While Meghan continues to push the infiltration PR strategy, Harry is quietly attempting to bridge the gap back to his homeland. He sees the chessboard clearly. Ted Sarandos is now a commander of the Order of the British Empire, honored by King Charles. The path back to relevance for Harry now runs through the very Hollywood executives who are aligning themselves with the British crown. We are witnessing the beginning of a professional decoupling, where Harry attempts to re-enter the royal corporate alliance, while Meghan remains isolated in the Hollywood bubble that has already burst. This brings us to the ultimate open loop. Why did those images from the Sarandos party disappear from Getty Images with such surgical precision? There is one detail that many have overlooked. Ted Sarandos was recently nominated for his honor by the Kungdi in Buckingham. In the world of global power, a relationship with a 1,000-year-old monarchy is infinitely more valuable than a failing $100 million contract with a polarizing couple. Harry apologized because he knew that Meghan didn't just ruin a dress, she insulted a man who is now an official vassal of the king. Was the Getty purge a gift from Sarandos to the king to keep the royal image clean of Sussex drama? Or was it a final warning to the couple that their access has been revoked? The answer may lie in the guest list for tonight's final gala in Sydney. As of this hour, not a single A-list celebrity, politician, or influencer has confirmed their attendance. The silence is absolute. The game has changed, and for the first time in 6 years, the Sussexes find themselves without a script. If you want to stay ahead of the next release from the Sydney Files, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on all notifications. This story is moving faster than the headlines can keep up with. Like this video if you believe the Montecito purge was the final straw, and comment below with your own prediction. Which kick ban do you see coming true by July? We are reading every theory. This is the dossier, and the record remains open.
This is a very crucial time for the king to be visiting America and taking part in many activities while he's there. He will also visit
9:15 a.m. April the 12th, 2026. Inside the cold, sterile backstage of the Melbourne Convention Centre, the silence is deafening. Prince Harry stands motionless, peering through a thin crack in the heavy velvet curtains. He was promised a global stage. He was promised a return to relevance. But as he looks out into the grand ballroom, the reality is a jagged pill to swallow. Out of the 300 high-tier VIP seats meticulously arranged for this workplace mental health summit, only 42 are occupied. 258 chairs remain draped in black cloth, standing like silent headstones for a career that once commanded millions. This is not just a bad turnout. This is the moment the million-dollar myth finally shattered. Welcome to a breaking investigative update. Today is April the 16th, 2026, and we have just obtained the internal audit from Peak Performance Group, the organisers behind this disastrous Australian tour. If you have been following the trajectory of the Montecito brand, what happened in Melbourne 3 days ago isn't just a headline, it is a financial autopsy. Before we dive into the classified documents that led to Harry's immediate eviction from his luxury suite, hit that like button and subscribe. If you believe the truth about these high-price speaking tours needs to be told, drop a comment below with the word accountability. It helps our investigative algorithm reach more viewers who are tired of the PR spin. According to eyewitness accounts from the security detail on site, Harry stood frozen for exactly 5 minutes. His face was described as deathly pale, his eyes locked onto a singular object, the digital dashboard on his lead assistant's iPad. The screen displayed the final ticket telemetry. It was a bloodbath. One column showed the original price point of $2,400. The next column showed the final desperate slash to $500 for digital access. The final status read, unsold. A staff member close to the production overheard a haunting exchange in those final seconds before the walk-on music started. Harry reportedly whispered, almost to himself, "I was told the demand was there. Where is everyone?" The assistant, visibly trembling, could only offer a cold, data-driven reality, replying, "Sir, the interest didn't convert. We've been running the ads for 3 weeks. People simply aren't clicking." The devastation was immediate. This wasn't just about a half-empty room. It was about the crushing weight of a $50,000 fee that was supposed to be 20 times higher. We are looking at a 95% collapse in market value. But the real sting came in the form of a legal document delivered via encrypted mail at 10 a.m. that same morning. We have tracked this back to Archewell's headquarters in California. The document is a formal force majeure notification. In the world of high-stakes events, this is the nuclear option. The organizers, Peak Performance Group, officially informed Harry's team that because the revenue failed to cover the basic operational overhead, the contract was being triggered into a deficit clause. The immediate consequence? The high life came to a screeching halt. By 2 p.m. that afternoon, while the 42 attendees were still digesting Harry's recycled anecdotes about childhood trauma, his luggage was already being moved out of the presidential suite at the Park Hyatt. The directive was sharp and uncompromising. To mitigate the massive financial loss, Harry was relocated to a standard corporate hotel near the airport. No private entrance, no dedicated security floor, just a disgraced prince in a room that cost $300 a night. This is the Melbourne fracture. For years, the narrative was that Harry was a global draw, a leader in the mental health space who could command the same rooms as former presidents, but the internal registration report tells a different story. It shows that out of the 42 people who actually showed up, 35 were there on complimentary media passes or industry invites. Only 7 people in the entire city of Melbourne actually paid their own money to hear him speak. As we sit here on April the 16th, the fallout is spreading. The authority staircase is collapsing. When a speaker cannot fill a 300-seat room, even after a 70% price cut, they are no longer an asset. They are a liability. The legal mechanism is now in motion. Under the Protocol 12 guidelines of the Crown Estate's recent branding update, any commercial failure of this magnitude triggers a review of the Royal Association. Stay tuned as we move into the next phase of this investigation. We are looking at the phone records that suggest Harry spent the entire night of the 12th trying to reach a legal team in London, only to find the doors firmly shut. The question isn't just why the room was empty. The question is, what happens to a prince when the world stops paying to listen? Don't go anywhere. The second half of this financial collapse is even more revealing. Check that subscribe button is turned on for the next update in this breaking series. The fundamental question haunting the industry today is simple. How does a global icon lose 95% of his market value in less than 5 years? To understand the devastation in Melbourne, we have to look at the speaker fee erosion mechanism, a cold, calculated financial downward spiral that the public is only just beginning to see. This isn't just a bad week for Harry. It is a systemic rejection by the global corporate elite. Let's pull back the curtain on the activation phase. In 2021, fresh off the exit from London, the demand for Prince Harry was at a fever pitch. He successfully anchored his brand at the $1 million mark per appearance. At that time, major financial institutions and tech giants were willing to pay the royal tax. They weren't necessarily paying for expert insights on mental health. They were paying for the proximity to the crown and the sheer curiosity of a prince unfiltered. For 18 months, the strategy worked. But then came the repetition phase of 2023 and 2024. This is where the foundation began to crack. Behind closed doors at major PR firms in London and New York, a red list began to circulate. We have heard from insiders at top-tier talent agencies who claim the feedback from corporate clients was becoming dangerously consistent. One report summarized the sentiment perfectly. "We paid for a visionary leader, but we got a therapy session. The market grew fatigued." The stories of personal struggle and palace grievances, which once commanded million-dollar checks, became a repetitive loop. When the content doesn't evolve, the price point cannot be sustained. This led us directly to the disruption phase of 2025 and 2026. When the Peak Performance Group signed the contract for the Melbourne Summit, they didn't want the old Harry. Internal communications suggest they explicitly requested data-driven solutions. They wanted research, white papers, and actionable frameworks for workplace wellness that could justify a $2,000 ticket price. The tragic reality? Harry couldn't provide it. When the organizers realized there was no new data, no peer-reviewed research, and no structural solutions being offered, the rescue clause was activated. The million-dollar dream was scrapped. The $50,000 fee wasn't a paycheck. It was a pity contract designed to ensure he at least showed up so the event wouldn't be cancelled entirely. But here is the detail that truly exposes the depth of the devastation. Let's look at the ledger from the Hyatt Regency. To maintain the illusion of high-status security, Harry's private protection detail, a team of 4 elite contractors, submitted an invoice for $62,000 for their 48-hour deployment in Melbourne. His total earnings for the speech? $50,000. Think about that math for a moment. After taxes and agency commissions, Harry was effectively paying $12,000 out of his own pocket for the privilege of standing in a room full of empty chairs. He wasn't the guest of honor. He was a subsidized attendee in his own show. The self-destruction mechanism is now fully engaged. He is paying for a lifestyle that his own work can no longer fund. As Harry sat in that Hyatt Regency bar in the early hours of April the 13th, the numbers on his phone didn't add up. And as we dig deeper into the Melbourne fracture, we are discovering that the financial loss is only the surface of the problem. Something far more calculated was happening behind the scenes, involving Meghan's separate appearances in Sydney, a move that suggests the brand of two might be officially decoupling. What did she know about the Melbourne numbers before the first ticket was even sold? The answer lies in a series of leaked emails we are currently verifying. The trajectory of this collapse didn't happen overnight. It is a documented financial death curve that we can now trace through a series of cold, hard dates and confidential internal memos. To understand why Harry looked so utterly devastated on that stage in Melbourne, we have to look at the 90 days leading up to the disaster. This is the timeline of a brand in terminal decline. It began on January the 10th, 2026, inside the boardroom of Archewell in Montecito. We have received reports of a high-level briefing where the quarterly financial projections were presented. The reality was stark. Cash reserves had plummeted to what insiders called a red zone alarm. The burn rate of their lifestyle, combined with a lack of new high-value contracts, created a liquidity crisis. It was in this room, under immense pressure, that the decision was made to greenlight the Australia tour. It was never about a passion for the cause. It was a desperate move for a quick capital injection. But the hammer fell from London just 5 weeks later. On February the 15th, 2026, the Crown Estate sent a formal, 3-page notification that would change everything. The document was clear. All remaining security subsidies and logistical support from the United Kingdom were officially and permanently terminated, effective immediately, even for international business travel. For Harry, this meant the cost of doing business just tripled. He was now responsible for every dollar of his elite protection, every private jet charter, and every secure communication line. The Australia tour was already underfunded before it even began. By April the 1st, 2026, the marketing machine in Melbourne kicked into gear. The event was titled The Prince's Insight, and the arrogance of the initial pricing was a fatal mistake. Tickets were set at $2,400. The team was betting on the old royal magic, the idea that people would pay a premium just to be in the same room as a duke. They were wrong. Fast forward to April the 8th, 2026. Just 4 days before the summit, the internal sales report, leaked to our investigators, shows a number so low it's almost hard to believe. Only 15 tickets had been sold to the general public. 15. A wave of panic swept through the local organizers. In a last-ditch effort to save face, thousands of dollars worth of tickets were offered for free to local university students and non-profit workers. The most humiliating detail? Even the students turned them down. They didn't want the insight for free, let alone for $2,000. Then came the morning of April the 12th. 9:30 a.m. Harry stepped onto that stage, expecting a roar of applause to mask the empty seats. Instead, he was met with a chilling silence. There was no standing ovation. There was only the muffled sound of 42 people shifting in their chairs, and a distinct, audible whisper from the back of the room. Why is he even still here? The transition from a global leader to a curiosity and then to a nuisance was completed in that single "c'est le moment." Which brings us to today, April the 16th, 2026. As the world watches these clips of a broken prince, our sources in Melbourne confirm that Harry is currently grounded. There is a payment hold on his private travel arrangements. The $50,000 fee has been swallowed by the $62,000 security bill, and the private jet company is reportedly refusing to take off until the balance is cleared. He isn't just devastated. He is effectively stranded in a city that didn't want to hear him speak. And the most haunting part of this timeline, the next stop on the tour has already been quietly removed from the website. The question is, who is paying for the room he is sitting in right now? While the echoes of silence in Melbourne are still ringing, the financial ledgers in London are telling a story of unprecedented triumph. This is the cruel contrast, a brutal financial mirror that reveals the true state of the global royal market in April 2026. To understand the depth of Harry's devastation, we have to look at the numbers he is desperately trying to ignore. In the exact same week that Harry stepped onto a stage in front of 42 people, the Royal Collection Trust in London released its mid-April quarterly report. The data is staggering. Revenue from visitors to sites specifically associated with Catherine, the Princess of Wales, has surged by an incredible 400%. This isn't just a slight uptick. It is a financial mandate. While Harry is struggling to sell a $500 digital pass, the public is flooding the palace gates, proving that the appetite for the monarchy hasn't diminished, it has simply consolidated. This brings us to the authority staircase, the cold metrics that determine who stays relevant and who becomes a footnote. First, we look at the YouGov Consumer Confidence Index for April 2026. This is the gold standard for public perception. The data shows that Harry's brand trust metric has hit an all-time low, falling into the -50 zone for the first time in history. For a public figure, this isn't just a bad poll, it is a commercial death sentence. But the real damage is happening in the corridors of the International Association of Speakers, or the IAS. This is the global Wall Street of public speaking. According to our sources, within the IAS, Harry's status has been officially downgraded from Tier 1 global keynote to high-risk lead. In the speaking world, this is the equivalent of a credit rating being slashed to junk status. When the IAS flags a speaker as high risk, the insurance premiums for the event skyrocket and the booking fees evaporate. Now, we look at the most dangerous element of this financial collapse: the moral turpitude mechanism. This is a standard but lethal clause in high-level endorsement and speaking contracts. It allows a corporation to unilaterally terminate a deal without paying a single cent in compensation if the individual's reputation falls below a certain public decency threshold or if their marketable authority collapses. Our investigation has uncovered that at least 2 major global sponsors are currently reviewing this specific clause in their agreements with Archu. The logic is simple. If the public no longer believes in the speaker's authority, the brand is being damaged by the association. The kill switch has been triggered. Harry is no longer being seen as a catalyst for change. He is being seen as a liability for the bottom line. The analysis is inescapable. The market hasn't turned its back on the British royal family. It has turned its back on the prince without a palace. Royalty, by its very nature, relies on a carefully maintained sense of mystery, duty, and institutional backing. When Harry traded that mystery for a microphone and a series of personal grievances, he unwittingly traded his value for a commodity that the market is now rejecting. Once the mystery is gone, the price drops to zero. And as the reports of Meghan's separate luxury appearances in Sydney continue to circulate, a new and even more chilling question is beginning to emerge among the elite circles in Melbourne. Is Harry the last person to realise that his crown was his only true currency? The next set of documents we have obtained suggest that the palace isn't just moving on, they are actively rewriting the rules of the game, and Harry's name isn't even on the list. Behind the closed doors of the hotel suite, the financial disaster of the Melbourne summit transformed into a profound personal crisis. This is the loneliness of the spare, a moment where the carefully constructed image of a powerhouse couple finally buckled under the weight of reality. While the public sees the empty chairs, our investigation has uncovered the silent drama unfolding in the digital logs and the quiet corridors of the Hyatt Regency. The most telling detail comes from a highly placed staff member within the hotel's premium services division. According to internal logs, between the hours of 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. on the night of the failed speech, Harry made 17 consecutive calls to a single number in Sydney. For over 120 minutes, he attempted to reach Meghan Markle. The result? Total radio silence. While Harry was reeling from the humiliation of a half-empty hall, Meghan was reportedly off the grid at a private, invitation-only launch for a high-end jewelry brand in a secluded Sydney penthouse. This wasn't a scheduling conflict, this was a PR surgical strike. Our sources within the Sydney event circuit confirm that Meghan's team had been monitoring the Melbourne ticket telemetry for at least 14 days. They knew the numbers were catastrophic. They knew the $50,000 flop was going to be the headline of the week. The decision for Meghan to remain in Sydney, surrounded by luxury and high-net-worth influencers, was a calculated move to cut losses. In the brutal world of modern branding, Meghan's team applied the principle of contagion avoidance, ensuring her image was not captured in the same frame as an empty ballroom or a husband described as devastated. The separation isn't just physical, it is strategic. While one side of the brand is desperately trying to sell vulnerability to a phantom audience, the other side is pivoting back to the exclusive, high society circles of Soho House and luxury endorsements. But it is the scene at 1 a.m., on April the 13th, that truly captures the depth of this fall from grace. A witness at the hotel bar, a space usually bustling with elite travelers, spotted Harry sitting alone in a darkened corner. He wasn't reviewing speech notes or checking the news. His eyes were fixed on his phone screen, which was playing a loop of old YouTube clips from the Platinum Jubilee and the 2018 Royal Wedding. This is the neo-realistic core of the Melbourne fracture. The devastation isn't just about the lost $1 million fee or the downgraded hotel room. It is the crushing realization of a man who has become a stranger in his homeland and a failure in his adopted one. In the royal videos, he is surrounded by the ultimate security of a 1,000-year-old institution. In the hotel bar in Melbourne, he is a private citizen, watching his own security bill exceed his earnings. The silence from Sydney spoke louder than any speech he could have delivered. It signaled that the United Front might be the next thing to be liquidated in the Archewell portfolio. As we look toward the final chapter of this Australian tour, the question is no longer about ticket prices. It is about the exit strategy. When the person you sacrificed everything for refuses to answer the phone during your most public failure, where do you go? The answer may lie in a series of frantic emails sent to a legal firm in London just before dawn, emails that suggest Harry is looking for a way back to a life he once claimed to hate. Why now? And what was the specific breaking point mentioned in the subject line of those messages? The documents we are about to reveal may change the narrative of the entire Montecito era. As we reach the final pages of this investigation on this morning of April the 16th, 2026, the Melbourne fracture has moved beyond a simple failed speech. It has reached a terminal inflection point. The data we have analyzed suggests three possible trajectories for the man formerly known as a global powerhouse. This is the scenario tree, the cold, calculated map of what comes next when the spotlights finally fade. The first, and by far the most realistic scenario, is the strategic disappearance. Our sources within the Australian tour circuit are already reporting hushed conversations regarding the upcoming dates in Brisbane and Perth. Expect a formal statement from Archwell within the next 48 hours, citing exhaustion or unforeseen health concerns. This is the classic PR smokescreen. Behind the scenes, the restructuring is already underway. The live-speaking arm of the brand is effectively dead. To survive, Archwell will likely retreat entirely into behind-the-scenes content production, attempting to sell stories from the shadows because they can no longer sell the man on the stage. The second, and most volatile scenario, is the litigious fallout. Peak Performance Group, the organizers who gambled on the royal aura, are facing a massive deficit. In the world of high-stakes contracts, brand magnetism is a quantifiable asset. If an organizer can prove that the speaker's team misrepresented their current market draw, they can trigger a breach of contract. We could be looking at a multi-million-dollar clawback lawsuit where sponsors demand their investments back, citing a failure to deliver the promised global engagement. For a brand already facing a liquidity crisis, this would be the final nail in the coffin. The third, and perhaps the most shocking scenario, is the quiet surrender. This is the U-turn back to London. Defeated, isolated, and financially drained, Harry may be forced to accept the Windsor terms a complete withdrawal from public life in exchange for a grace and favour residence and a return to the institutional fold. It would mean the total abandonment of the Montecito dream, a public admission that the experiment of independence has failed. Which of these is the most likely? Based on the current trajectory, Scenario 1 is already in motion. The strategic disappearance allows for a face-saving exit, even if the industry knows the truth. But as Harry waits for his flight out of Melbourne, he is carrying something far more heavy than a failed contract. This brings us to the most chilling detail of this entire investigation, a detail that has remained hidden until this very hour. Think back to the morning of April the 10th, when that black car from the British consulate arrived at the Montecito gates. We have received a verified report regarding the contents of that navy blue folder. On page 14, tucked away in the administrative updates section, lies a single, cold directive. It does not mention money. It does not mention titles. It is a formal notification of the permanent revocation of the diplomatic passport issued to the individual identified as Henry Charles Albert David. This is the ultimate security severance. Without a diplomatic passport, the prince is no longer an international envoy. He is a private citizen subject to standard immigration queues, standard visa restrictions, and zero state protection. When the diplomatic immunity is gone, when the audience is gone, and when the phone in Sydney continues to ring unanswered, who does Harry become? The answer will be written in the upcoming quarterly financial reports, and the numbers will not lie. This investigation is far from over. If this breakdown has opened your eyes to the reality behind the $50,000 flop, hit that like button right now. Your support allows us to keep digging where others are afraid to look. Subscribe and turn on all notifications. Our next deep dive into the Archwell exit strategy is dropping sooner than you think. What do you believe was Harry's biggest mistake in Melbourne? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. Stay tuned, because the truth is the only thing that cannot be silenced.
This is not a royal tour. Two private citizens pretending they're the King and Queen of California. It is just bizarre.
11:15 a.m. April 14, 2026. Inside the sterile, high-pressure corridors of Ward 4B at the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne, the atmosphere of a carefully staged production suddenly collapsed. It is now the morning of April 16, 2026, and we have obtained exclusive details of what the mainstream press is only beginning to whisper about. This was not a royal visit. It was a diplomatic evacuation. While the world was being fed images of a compassionate duchess, a senior security official wearing a Victoria State Government red identification tag approached Prince Harry in the pediatric oncology lobby. There was no formal bow. There was no protocol-mandated greeting. Eyewitnesses report the officer leaned in and delivered a cold 11-word sentence that changed everything. The officer reportedly told him, "Your vehicle has been positioned at the rear exit for immediate departure." In that moment, the facade of a humanitarian tour shattered. We are looking at a calculated intervention from the highest levels of government and the British monarchy. Sources indicate that while Meghan Markle was busy instructing hospital staff to rearrange gift boxes to ensure the lighting was perfect for her personal film crew, a silent war was being waged over the Atlantic. Just 10 minutes prior to this sudden expulsion, a high-priority call was placed from Kensington Palace directly to the Governor of Victoria. Prince William himself is reported to have made it clear that the monarchy would not underwrite or endorse any commercial filming activities within a sensitive medical facility. The message was surgical and final. The Crown does not authorize the use of vulnerable children as backdrops for a private brand. The authority behind this move is documented in the hospital's internal visitor log, entry number RCH 2026 AUD. The records show an entourage of 12 people, including 4 professional camera operators with high-definition equipment, attempting to bypass standard safety protocols. This was a direct violation of Regulation HSE 2026, a strict biosecurity and patient privacy framework designed to protect immunocompromised children. The hospital staff, who are sworn to professional secrecy, were reportedly horrified by the Duchess's initial remark upon arrival. Before the cameras were rolling, a staff member heard Meghan utter 4 chilling words. "Let's make this quick." This was the reality behind the mask. A woman wearing $30,000 worth of designer jewelry, including Princess Diana's gold Cartier watch, treating a cancer ward like a scheduled stop on a press junket. As this news breaks on this Thursday morning, April 16, the sheer scale of the deception is coming to light. This was never about the children. This was about content for a commercial funnel that ends this Saturday with a $2,699 wellness retreat. If you are as shocked by these developments as we are, take a moment right now to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. We are tracking every document and every whisper from the palace as this story escalates. Drop a comment below with the word truth if you believe royal titles should never be used for private profit. Your engagement helps us bring these hidden files to the surface. The Office of the Lord Chamberlain in London has already issued a non-association signal to the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs. In the world of diplomacy, this is the equivalent of a total blackout. They are effectively saying, these two are on their own. While the Duchess was allegedly complaining about the poor lighting in the recovery rooms, the hospital administration was being pressured by the Victoria Health Board to shut down the production. The mechanism of this brand laundering is now being dissected by experts. It works in 3 stages. First, you trigger a nostalgia response by visiting a site made famous by Princess Diana. Second, you wear her personal items to create a spiritual link. Third, you use that manufactured image to sell high-priced tickets to a private event. But the palace has fought back. By withdrawing official security support for the final leg of the trip, the monarchy has sent a clear financial ultimatum. This morning, as Harry and Meghan prepare for their next appearance, they are facing a public that is no longer cheering, but questioning. The hospital logs do not lie. The security intervention was real, and the 4 words uttered by Meghan Markle in Ward 4B will likely haunt this tour until its bitter end. Stay tuned. because what happened next at the rear exit of the hospital involves a heated exchange that was captured on a security microphone. We are currently verifying that audio and will bring it to you in the next hour. Do not go anywhere. Subscribing is the only way to ensure you see the footage the palace is trying to suppress. This is breaking news for April 16, 2026. The truth is finally outperforming the script. The paper trail of this Australian tour does not lead to a charity foundation. It leads directly to a commercial bank account in Delaware. To understand the collapse at the hospital, we have to look at the silent, high-stakes chess match that began days before the first camera shutter clicked in Melbourne. The timeline of what we are calling the financial trap began on April 10, 2026. In a private office in Montecito, California, Meghan Markle reportedly signed a wire transfer for $500,000. This was the non-refundable deposit for the event spaces, security, and luxury logistics of her 4-day trip. It was a massive financial gamble designed to be recouped through $2,700 ticket sales. But at that exact moment in London, Princess Anne was already one step ahead. Sources within the Lord Chamberlain's office confirm that the Princess Royal had begun a comprehensive audit of every royal title currently being leveraged for unauthorized commercial gain. The trap was being set from both sides of the world. By April 13, the Sussexes touched down in Melbourne to a muted reception. While they were checking into their luxury suite, a different kind of royal power was being displayed 6,000 miles away in Norfolk. Princess Catherine made a surprise appearance at a small, rural health centre. There were no pool photographers. There was no pre-written press release. She spent the afternoon sitting with families, wearing a high-street outfit that cost less than Meghan's shoes. Royal insiders are calling this the silent slap, a deliberate demonstration from the future queen on how service is actually performed. It was a masterclass in contrast that left the Sussexes' planned arrival looking like a shallow fashion show. The tension reached a boiling point on April 14 at 9 a.m. As Meghan walked into the Royal Children's Hospital wearing Princess Diana's gold Cartier watch, she thought she was projecting power. She didn't know that in London, Prince William had just activated a legal file known as Image Rights 412. This specific legal mechanism is designed to protect the late Princess Diana's likeness and personal effects from being used in commercialized performances. William wasn't just watching, he was protecting his mother's legacy from being used as a marketing tool for a wellness retreat. Then came the 11:15 a.m. breakpoint. Following Meghan's reported complaint about the lighting in the paediatric ward, the Victoria state government moved in. The evacuation was swift. The message from the palace had been received. Do not allow the crown to be used as a prop. The fallout on April 15 was catastrophic for the Sussex brand. In Sydney, a public petition against their taxpayer-funded security reached 45,000 signatures in less than 24 hours. This wasn't just online noise, it was a formal grievance. Simultaneously, Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, dispatched a rare diplomatic telegram to the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs. The cable reportedly clarified that the Duke and Duchess were travelling as private citizens with no representational authority. This effectively stripped them of their diplomatic immunity and forced them to face the growing legal and financial scrutiny of the Australian tax authorities alone. Now, we reach the present moment. Thursday, April 16, 2026. As the sun rises over the Sydney harbour, a single document is sitting on King Charles's desk in the private study at Highgrove. It is a 3-page ultimatum titled Permanent Suspension of Style and Title. The King is being pressured by his senior advisors to sign it before the $2,700 a seat wellness retreat begins this Saturday. The deadline is looming. If the King signs, Harry and Meghan will lose the right to use their titles for any commercial activity on Australian soil, effective immediately. The $500,000 deposit is at stake. Their entire business model is on the line. But there is one more detail: a private letter sent from Harry to his father just 3 hours ago pleading for a reprieve. The contents of that letter are currently being leaked to select sources. The clock is ticking towards Saturday, and the monarchy is about to deliver its final verdict. To understand the chaos unfolding in Sydney this morning, we have to look behind the curtain of what experts are now calling the most sophisticated brand laundering operation ever attempted. As of April 16, 2026, the mechanism used by the Sussex team has been fully exposed, and the countermove from London is nothing short of a legal execution. This isn't just a royal feud, it is a battle over the commercial soul of the monarchy. The Sussex operation functions like a high-speed corporate machine, and step one is what analysts call the humanitarian activation. By choosing a children's hospital as their first stop, they weren't seeking to provide comfort, they were seeking a moral shield. The hospital serves as a laundry for their reputation. When you surround yourself with sick children and nurses, you create a visual narrative of saintliness that makes any future criticism look like an attack on charity itself. The Ward 4B visit was the lead magnet for the entire trip, a calculated attempt to sanitize their brand before the heavy commercialization began. Then comes step 2, the symbolic tagging. This is where the outrage reaches a fever pitch among those who remember the true legacy of the late Princess of Wales. Meghan Markle didn't just wear a gold Cartier watch, she wore a carefully selected costume of authority. By appearing at the exact same hospital Princess Diana visited in 1985, wearing Diana's personal timepiece, Meghan was attempting to tag her image with Diana's global prestige. Sources inside the hospital confirm that Meghan's team insisted she be addressed as Princess Meghan during every interaction. It was a blatant attempt to upgrade her status from a private citizen to a semi-divine royal figure, all to increase the market value of the Sussex name. The final phase, step 3, is the commercial conversion. This is the cold, hard reality that has left the Australian public reeling. Every photo taken at that hospital, every tear shed on camera, was designed to be repurposed as marketing material for this Saturday's Her Best Life Wellness Retreat. The math is simple. You take the compassion generated at the cancer ward on Monday, and you convert it into $2,700 VIP tickets on Saturday. The sick children were not the mission, they were the production design for a sales funnel. But the firm in London has officially stopped playing defense. Princess Anne, known as the royal family's most relentless enforcer, has reportedly activated a rarely used mechanism called the title audit. Working in conjunction with the United Kingdom Intellectual Property Office, the palace has moved to block the Sussexes' ability to monetize their titles on international soil. Under the newest regulations for 2026, any royal title used for the purpose of selling private products, like a $3,000 wellness retreat, can be legally flagged as deceiving the public. This is the legal kill switch. If the Intellectual Property Office confirms that the princess title was used to mislead Australian consumers into thinking this retreat was an official royal event, the consequences are immediate. Financial authorities in Sydney have already been alerted. We are hearing reports that the bank accounts linked to the Her Best Life event are currently under a compliance hold as investigators look for evidence of trademark infringement. As we speak, the tension in the Sussex camp is reportedly at a breaking point. The humanitarian mask has slipped, and the commercial engine is stalling. But there is a darker rumour circulating in the corridors of the Intercontinental Hotel this morning. It concerns a private video recording from the hospital that Meghan's team is desperately trying to buy back. They say it captures the exact moment the humanitarian mask fell off when a nurse refused to follow the script. If that footage hits the internet before Saturday, the $2,700 tickets won't just be worthless, they will be evidence. The clock is ticking, and the palace is no longer staying silent. The archives of the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne hold a record from 1985 that stands as a silent, devastating indictment of what occurred this week. As we analyse the leaked logs from the April 14 visit, the contrast between the late Princess of Wales and Meghan Markle has moved beyond a matter of opinion. It is now a matter of documented fact. According to the 1985 archival file, Princess Diana spent over 180 minutes inside the facility. There are no records of rope barriers. There are no mentions of royal distance. Instead, the nurses of that era described a woman who sat on the floor, at eye level with children who were facing their darkest hours. Diana famously removed her gloves, a gesture that, at the time, was a radical act of humanity intended to make the children feel like people, not patients. She was there to absorb their pain, not to extract their image. Fast forward 41 years to the Melbourne 2026 logs. The documentation reveals a starkly different reality. Hospital staff have confirmed that at the request of the Sussex security team, a physical rope barrier was installed in the common areas. This was reportedly done to maintain a princess-level perimeter around Meghan Markle. While Diana broke protocols to get closer, Meghan allegedly enforced them to stay apart. But the most shocking detail lies in the timestamp of the interaction with a 4-year-old patient named Lily. While the official press release implied an afternoon of deep connection, the internal ward log tells a different story. Meghan Markle reportedly spent exactly 45 seconds at the child's bedside. Witnesses claim that as soon as the pool photographer captured the hero shot of Meghan leaning in, she turned to her senior assistant and uttered a sentence that has left the medical staff in disbelief. She reportedly asked, "Are we done? We need to get to the summit." The summit she referred to was Harry's keynote speech at the Inner Edge event, a paid appearance reportedly worth $70,000. The visit to a child battling cancer was, quite literally, a 45-second pit stop on the way to a high-paying corporate gig. However, as Meghan was performing for the cameras, a shadow operation was being conducted by Kensington Palace. While the Sussexes were making headlines for their wardrobe choices, a substantial anonymous donation was quietly cleared into the hospital's Oncology Research Fund. For 48 hours, the donor remained a mystery. But this morning, April 16, the truth has begun to leak out from private nurse forums in Melbourne. The digital trail reveals that the anonymous benefactor who provided the funding for 3 new pediatric chemotherapy suites is, in fact, Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Unlike Meghan, Catherine issued no press release. There were no cameras. There was no gold watch displayed for the world to see. It was a surgical strike of genuine philanthropy, designed to help the very children Meghan was allegedly using as props. The reaction within the hospital is reaching a fever pitch. One senior nurse, posting under a pseudonym on a medical professional board, stated, "One woman came to give, the other came to take." This revelation has created a massive discrepancy in the humanitarian narrative the Sussexes are trying to sell. As we sit here on Thursday morning, the Australian public is beginning to ask a dangerous question. Why did a private citizen from California demand a rope barrier in a children's ward, while the future Queen of England provided the cure in total silence? The documents are out, the timestamps are verified, and as the sun sets on day 3 of this tour, the Princess Meghan persona is facing a total systems failure. But the biggest revelation is still to come, a financial document from the Sydney Intercontinental that suggests the $70,000 summit fee was only the beginning of the ATM strategy. Stay alert, because the paper trail is about to get much darker. The ballroom of the Intercontinental Coogee Beach in Sydney is currently being transformed into a high-end stage for what was supposed to be Meghan Markle's ultimate financial victory. As we look at the logistics for this Saturday, April 18, the projected revenue from the Her Best Life Wellness Retreat is staggering, with VIP tickets sold at $2,700 and general admission at nearly $1,700. The estimated intake for this single event exceeds $2.5 million. But beneath the luxury linens and the wellness branding, we have uncovered a trail of documents that point to a massive transparency crisis. Our investigative team has tracked the tax identification number for the primary event organizer. The trail doesn't lead to a reputable Australian charity or an established events firm. Instead, It links directly to a newly formed shell company registered in Delaware, a jurisdiction known for corporate secrecy and tax shielding. This discovery has sent shockwaves through the Australian financial sector. Why would a humanitarian tour be funneling millions of dollars into an opaque American shell company? This isn't just a PR blunder. It is a red flag that has triggered a formal audit by the Australian Tax Office this morning, April 16. As the financial pressure mounts, the palace in London has delivered what can only be described as an economic guillotine. We have confirmed through a leaked security directive that the Specialist Protection Command, known as SO14, has officially withdrawn all royal security coverage for the fourth day of the tour. This is a historic move. By declaring Saturday a purely commercial endeavour, the British government and the monarchy are refusing to provide taxpayer-funded protection for Meghan's private business. This means Harry and Meghan are now facing an immediate, massive expense. To secure the Intercontinental Coogee Beach for an event of this scale, they are being forced to hire 40 private security contractors at their own expense. Sources suggest this will cost the Sussexes north of $100,000 for a single day. It is a direct financial strike from London, a clear message that if you want to be a private entrepreneur, you will pay the private price. But perhaps the most damning piece of evidence from this week comes not from a bank, but from a high-definition photograph taken at the Melbourne hospital. Royal jewellery watchers, using high-resolution zoom on the shots of Meghan in Ward 4B, have spotted a smoking gun on her wrist. While the Duchess was allegedly providing comfort to sick children, the hands on Princess Diana's gold Cartier watch were frozen. The watch was visibly set 15 minutes behind the local Melbourne time. For an accessory that Meghan claims to wear as a daily staple, this discrepancy suggests one thing. The watch was not being used to tell time. It was being used as a prop. It was a piece of performance art, strapped on specifically for the cameras to create a visual link to the late Princess of Wales. When you are in a cancer ward for only 90 minutes, every second counts unless you are only there for the photo, and you forget to even wind the watch for the part you are playing. This tiny detail, a 15-minute lag on a $30,000 timepiece, has become the symbol of the entire tour's lack of authenticity. It confirms what the hospital staff suspected. The visit was a costume drama. As we move closer to the Saturday deadline, the Her Best Life retreat is looking less like a wellness event and more like a desperate attempt to cover the costs of a failing brand. The atmosphere inside the Intercontinental is reportedly tense. The shell company is under fire, the security bill is skyrocketing, and the princess persona is being dismantled by the very watch she used to build it. But there is one more document currently circulating in the Sydney press offices, a list of demands for the Saturday VIP photo op that would leave even the biggest Hollywood stars blushing. The details of what those $2,700 tickets actually buy are coming out, and it's a far cry from wellness. The final wall is about to crumble. The countdown has officially begun. It is currently the morning of Thursday, April 16, 2026, and the next 48 hours will determine the survival of the Sussex brand in the Southern Hemisphere. As the Her Best Life Wellness Retreat looms on Saturday, our intelligence suggests that the monarchy has moved from observation to active intervention. Based on the financial data, diplomatic cables, and the fallout from the Melbourne hospital visit, we have mapped out the three most probable scenarios for how this crisis ends. The first scenario, which carries a 20% probability, is what analysts are calling the path of maximum defiance. In this version of events, Harry and Meghan choose to ignore the state government's expulsion from the hospital and the withdrawal of royal security. They push forward with the Saturday retreat as if nothing has happened. However, the consequences would be immediate and public. Our sources in Sydney report that local activist groups, fueled by the 45,000 signature petition, are already planning a massive rally for reality outside the Intercontinental Coogee Beach Hotel. Simultaneously, the legal team at Kensington Palace would be forced to pull the trigger on a high-stakes copyright lawsuit, freezing all ticket revenue before a single guest enters the ballroom. The second scenario, with a 30% probability, involves a shattered front. There are growing reports that Prince Harry has been deeply affected by the silent slap delivered by Princess Catherine and the cold reception from his veteran peers in Australia. In this scenario, Harry issues a private apology to the Royal Children's Hospital and formally withdraws his name and image from all commercial marketing for the wellness retreat. This would leave Meghan Markle to face the Sydney press and the paying VIPs alone. This wouldn't just be a PR disaster, it would be the first public confirmation of a total strategic rift within the Sussex camp, effectively ending their ability to market themselves as a united royal duo. However, the most realistic scenario, carrying a 50% probability, is the King's final decree. Sources close to Buckingham Palace suggest that King Charles III has finished reviewing the reports of the brand laundering tactics used in Ward 4B. The expectation is that a formal proclamation will be issued from London by tomorrow night. This is the nuclear option. It would involve a global, permanent suspension of the Sussex brand for any commercial purpose, by stripping the legal right to use the title in a business context just hours before the Saturday retreat. The King would effectively bankrupt the event's legitimacy. The Delaware-based shell company would be left holding a massive bill for an event that no longer has a name. As we wait for the final move from Highgrove, the tension in Sydney is suffocating. If you have been following this investigation, now is the time to join the conversation. Do you think the King should sign the decree today? Or should Harry and Meghan be allowed to face the public on Saturday? Hit the like button to show your support for transparency, and make sure you are subscribed with notifications turned on. The situation is moving so fast that we may have another update before the day is over. But as we prepare to close this file, a new and darker piece of evidence has emerged that could render all scenarios obsolete. A grainy video from a security camera at the hospital's rear exit is currently being circulated among high-level media brokers. In the footage, recorded at 11:25 a.m. on Tuesday, Prince Harry looks visibly exhausted, leaning against a concrete pillar. He appears to be in a heated, desperate argument with Meghan regarding the ethics of using his mother's name. The most chilling part is the audio captured by a nearby security microphone. Meghan's voice is sharp, urgent, and unmistakable. She is heard saying, "We need this money to maintain our status. It's the only way." This recording, which reportedly lasts for over 3 minutes, is being offered to international networks for a 7-figure sum. We are working with our sources to verify the metadata of this clip. If this exchange is confirmed, it is no longer just a royal scandal, it is a total unmasking of the Sussex machine. Stay with us. The truth is coming out, and the cameras were rolling when they least expected it. We will